I didn't head out that night expecting anything weird. I just needed to breathe. I'd been holed up in my apartment in downtown Pittsburgh for hours, staring blankly at the walls, obsessively rereading the same text that had just gutted me. "We need to talk, but I can't do this in person. I'm sorry." That was it. That's all Aiden had sent. My boyfriend, nearly a year together, holidays, meeting the parents, late-night talks about our future, decided to end it with a single message. No explanation, no conversation, just silence after that. I sat there frozen, phone clutched in my hand, heart pounding like it was trying to escape. The grief hit first, heavy and sudden, but right behind it came this sharp, bitter kind of anger, like heat rising behind my eyes. Around 11:15 p.m., I grabbed a hoodie, stuffed my phone and keys into my pocket, and walked out without even brushing my hair. I needed movement, space, anything but that apartment. The night air hit me like a slap, cold, raw, sobering, but I welcomed it. Let it numb me. I didn't have a destination in mind. My feet just kind of carried me, and before I knew it, I was heading down Carson Street toward that sad little Wendy's. Yeah, that Wendy's. The one that had weirdly become my go-to place when shit fell apart. I'd been there twice before, once after my dog died, and once after I got laid off from the graphic design firm in spring. There's something weirdly comforting about fast food joints at midnight. The industrial hum, the smell of grease clinging to the air, the flicker of two bright fluorescent lights. It made the world feel less personal, less sharp, like no one expected anything from you. When I pushed open the door, the place was dead quiet. Not surprising, it was almost midnight. The bell above the door gave a lazy ding as I stepped inside, arms wrapped around myself. Only one guy stood behind the counter. Tall, wiry frame, short, frizzy curls, and a face that looked like sleep hadn't visited in days. Maybe early 20s. He offered a faint smile when he saw me, polite but hollow. "Rough night?" he asked. I blinked, caught off guard. You could say that." He gave a slow nod and tapped something into the register. "Usual burger combo? No pickles? Extra ketchup?" That stopped me. I narrowed my eyes. "Wait, how do you know that?" He shrugged, casual. "You've been here before. People notice things." The way he said it made something shift in my stomach. Not exactly threatening, just off. Like there was something behind the words I wasn't supposed to catch. "Yeah, that's fine," I said eventually. He nodded. "That'll be $9.63. I handed him a 10, avoiding eye contact, and muttered a quiet, "Thanks." I wasn't exactly in the mood for small talk. "You sure you're okay?" he asked again, softer this time. I glanced up, a little irritated now. "Why does it matter? Just make the food." He didn't flinch, just handed back my change and nodded toward the window. "Seat's open by the front, I'll bring it out." I didn't answer, just walked to the booth and dropped into the seat. Outside, the rain had started to pick up, light, misty. My hoodie clung damp against my arms. The front window was fogged around the edges, but I could still see the street, empty except for one guy standing at the opposite corner. He wore a black raincoat with the hood down, face tilted just enough to catch the streetlight. At first I didn't think much of it, just another night walker. But then, he smiled, slowly, directly at me. I looked away, unsettled, counted to 5. When I glanced back, he was still staring, and then, casually, he crossed the street. I felt my stomach tighten. Without even looking around, he walked into the Wendy's and made a beeline for my booth. Didn't hesitate, didn't ask, just sat down across from me like we knew each other. "You look like you've had a hell of a night," he said, smiling faintly. I stiffened. "Do I know you?" He shook his head. "Nope, but heartbreak's written all over you, like a glow, or a dim, depends on how you handle it." His voice was calm, low, almost too calm, like he was trying to lull me into something. "Let me guess. Boyfriend dumped you?" I stared at him. How'd you know? He gave a small shrug. It's in your face. And despite everything, despite the weirdness of it all, I laughed. Just a little. That obvious, huh? Yeah, he said, leaning back slightly. And I get it. Sometimes people suck, he said, leaning back against the vinyl seat. His raincoat dripped steadily onto the floor, but he didn't seem to care. I noticed he wasn't carrying anything. No phone, no wallet, not even a bag. Just there, like he belonged. There was something off about him. He was good-looking, yeah, rugged in that older, slightly weathered kind of way. Early 30s, maybe. But his eyes didn't match his voice. They looked exhausted. Not just tired, like worn down by something deep and rotting. What's your name? I asked, mostly out of habit, not curiosity. Liam, he said smoothly. I didn't believe him. It felt too rehearsed, too ready. Before I could press him, the worker approached with my tray. He placed the burger combo in front of me, then glanced at Liam. His eyes lingered a beat too long, his posture tightening. Everything okay here? He asked carefully. Liam smiled, calm as ever. Yeah, we're just talking. The worker didn't look away from me. His eyes searched mine like he was looking for some kind of silent signal. I'm not even sure what expression I gave him, something between confusion and fear. But it was enough to shift something in his stance. He gave a small nod and stepped away, though I could feel him still watching. As I unwrapped my burger, trying to act normal, I noticed Liam's hands on the table. They looked wrong. At first, I thought it was just dirt smeared along his fingers and knuckles, but then I realized the color was darker, thicker, red, not quite fresh, but not dry either. My heart started pounding. I kept my eyes on the food, hands steady, pretending. You know, he said casually, this place is part of a pattern for me. I swallowed hard. What do you mean? He smiled faintly. Every time I finish something important, Zarina, I come here, like a reward. Finish what? I asked, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer. He just leaned forward. His smile vanished. His eyes were too still. You ever wonder what it feels like to end someone's story? He asked. To be the final chapter? I went cold. What did you say? He reached into his coat. My breath caught. Something metallic flashed. I didn't get a clear look, but I didn't need to. A knife. My chest seized. My limbs locked. Panic screamed in my brain, but my body refused to listen. He set the blade beside him on the seat, half wrapped in a dirty cloth. The tip stuck out. Sharp, dark, unmistakable. Don't scream, he said, voice low and deadly calm, or I'll gut you before anyone even notices. I couldn't breathe. My fingers trembled under the table. Why me? I whispered. He looked out the window like he didn't want to say it directly to me. Because you're alone, he said. And because you looked at me. Sometimes, that's all it takes. Just then the worker returned. No tray this time. Just him. Sir, he said, voice steady. I need you to come with me. Liam didn't move. She's not interested in company, the worker said again. We're having a moment, Liam replied with a grin, eyes still locked on mine. I said now. This time, the worker's voice was firmer. Something shifted. Liam stood quickly. Too quickly, his movements sharp and dangerous. The knife flashed again. I shrank into the booth, heart jackhammering. But the worker didn't back down. In one fluid motion, he reached behind the counter, grabbed something, looked like a metal rod, maybe part of the mop handle, and swung. The crack was loud, sickening. The rod smashed into Liam's temple. He dropped instantly. Blood sprayed the table. I screamed finally. Backed away so fast I almost tripped over my own feet, sobbing, my hands over my mouth. The worker tossed the rod aside and yanked out his phone. Yeah, 911. Send someone fast, he said. She's hurt. He had a weapon. Everything blurred after that. Paramedics arrived, police followed. They arrested Liam, barely conscious, and took me to UPMC Mercy. Turned out the blade had grazed my shoulder in the commotion. I needed stitches. They said I was lucky. The next day, the worker visited me in the hospital. He was out of uniform this time. He looked younger, softer. He smiled and handed me a coffee. "Next time," he said with a wink, "don't glare at the guy taking your order." I laughed somehow. I didn't even know I could laugh anymore. "I guess I owe you my life," I said. He shrugged. "Just doing my job. But maybe. Don't sit with strangers in fast food joints after midnight, yeah?" I nodded slowly. I never went back to that Wendy's, but I never forgot what happened. And I never, ever treated anyone like they didn't matter again. Because sometimes the person you dismiss might be the only thing standing between you and something that wants to destroy you. I never imagined I'd say this, but working the day shift at a fast food joint in Atlanta turned out to be more dangerous than any graveyard shift I ever worked. I've been at the Wendy's on Memorial Drive for just under 6 months. Name's Marcus Holloway, 28. Used to do construction before my knee gave out. Torn ligaments, the whole mess. And bills? They don't care if you're limping or laid up. So I took the next honest job I could find. Flipping burgers, wiping down sticky tables, dealing with people who treat you like a vending machine. It's not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on. People always assume the day shift is easier. Fewer drunks, less shady energy, and yeah, sunlight gives the illusion that things are safer. But what they don't realize is, the real monsters, the ones you should be scared of, they walk around just fine in the daylight. That Tuesday felt normal, right up until it didn't. I clocked in at 11 a.m., clipped on my name tag, still had a mustard stain from Monday, and jumped in to help Clarissa transition from breakfast to lunch. Clarissa's been here longer than some of the grills. Late 40s, sharp tongue, doesn't suffer fools. We were joking around, talking trash about Reggie, our new manager. The guy couldn't find the reset button on the soda machine if you stapled a map to his forehead. And then, something shifted. It wasn't anything loud or dramatic, just a feeling, like that electric silence before a thunderstorm rolls in. My skin prickled. I glanced up at the clock, 1:15 p.m. The slow stretch, where the lunch rush dies down and you start deep cleaning everything. I'd just finished wiping down the lobby tables. Clarissa was in the back, restocking sauce packets. That's when the front door creaked open. Not the usual cheerful ding. This was different. A long, low groan like the hinges hadn't moved in years. I looked up. A woman walked in first, early 30s I'd guess. Petite, with this oversized gray hoodie swallowing her up. She carried a duffel bag so heavy it pulled her whole frame down. Something about her, her eyes, immediately set me on edge. She was scanning the room, fast, like a trapped animal hunting for exits. Then he walked in behind her. Tall, had to be at least 6'3". Lean, but with this wired tension, like he could explode or bolt any second. Military vibe, or maybe just someone who's been in too many fights. But it was his face that stopped me. Jaw clenched so tight it looked painful, and eyes locked on her like she was prey. They didn't look like a couple grabbing lunch. They looked like a story I didn't want to be part of. She stepped up to the counter, shoulders curled inward, like she was bracing for a hit. Her voice came out soft, almost apologetic. "Key combo 3, please, medium fries, small soda," he snapped. "What did I tell you?" His voice cracked the air. "Big fries. Always big fries." Her whole body flinched. Her voice cracked. I didn't bring enough. You said I could get what we agreed." He stepped in close, towering over her, crowding her space. "You're always screwing things up," he spat. "Can't even handle this. You're useless." It wasn't just what he said. It was how. Each word dripping with disgust, like he was looking at something rotten. I felt my gut tighten. I cleared my throat, heart pounding. "Sir," I said, trying to stay calm, "there's no need to—" Before I could finish, he lunged over the counter and shoved me. Hard. I flew back, crashing into the tile wall behind me. My shoulder hit something sharp, the metal corner of the fire extinguisher mount maybe, and pain shot down my arm like lightning. I staggered forward, disoriented. Clarissa peeked around from the back, eyes wide and scared. "Marcus, you good?" The woman looked like she might collapse right there. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Please don't start. Everyone's watching. You're embarrassing me." He didn't even glance at her when he said it. Just stared past her like she wasn't there. "You embarrassed yourself the second you opened your damn mouth." I stepped in, trying to diffuse whatever the hell this was turning into. My hands were up, palms out, voice steady. "You gotta leave, man. Right now, before someone gets hurt." But he wasn't hearing anything. He grabbed me by the collar and slammed me into the register. My skull bounced off the plastic and metal. A burst of white light exploded behind my eyes. Then the punches came. Fast, mean, targeted. One to the ribs, winding me. Another cracked into my jaw. My knees buckled. The lobby froze. Not a single person moved. It was like I'd dropped into a bad dream, one where everyone else was just shadows watching through fogged glass. Clarissa's voice broke through, yelling from the back, panicked and high-pitched. "Somebody call 911!" But the words got lost in the chaos. He hit me again, hard enough to knock me off my feet. I slid across the tile, gasping, couldn't even get a full breath in. Pain was blooming everywhere, sharp in the ribs, dull in the skull. My ears rang. The woman screamed, "Stop, please, you're hurting him." Her voice cracked under the weight of it. He didn't even flinch. Spit flying from his mouth, fists clenched so tight his knuckles looked bone white. His face was flushed, more than angry, like something inside had snapped. He grabbed the metal napkin dispenser from the counter and hurled it. It crashed against the wall with a deafening clang, scattering napkins across the floor like feathers. That finally did it. Broke the spell. Chairs screeched back, a kid screamed, tables flipped, people rushed for the door. I started crawling toward the kitchen, dragging my body inch by inch. My lungs were burning, and the whole room tilted sideways every time I moved. That's when I saw it, a kitchen knife lying on the floor. Looked like it had fallen during the commotion. I reached for it, slow and desperate. Too late. He saw it too. He snatched it up before I could even get close. And when he turned back toward me, there was nothing left in his eyes. No logic, no control. Just blank, hollow rage, like he'd unplugged from reality completely. Clarissa's scream tore through the air. "He's got a knife!" That's when the crowd surged. Customers poured out, finally shaken from their shock. I heard someone yell into their phone, another scream by the soda machine, then a crackling voice through the store's PA. Someone had finally called the cops. The woman tried to grab his arm, sobbing now. "Please don't. Please, just stop." He shoved her like she was weightless. She hit the floor and skidded across the tiles, arms curling protectively around her ribs. He turned to me again, knife low in his grip like he knew how to use it. "Still want to be a hero, huh?" he snarled. "Let's see how brave you are now." I was backed into the corner near the soda fountain. Nowhere to run, nothing to shield myself with. My hands went up, trembling, useless. My heartbeat was a war drum in my ears, and then, bang. The front door flew open. 2 officers stormed in, weapons raised. "Drop the knife!" He froze for half a second, knife still up, eyes flicking between them and me. The woman cried out from the floor, her voice raw and terrified. "Don't do it, please." But he didn't listen. His wrist twitched, blade rising. That's when one of the cops lunged, tackled him from behind, full body. The knife flew from his grip and skidded across the floor. Even then he kept fighting, thrashing, cursing, snarling like an animal cornered. It took 2 more officers to bring him down, pin him, cuff him, and then finally it was over. They dragged him out screaming and kicking, eyes wild. I slid down the wall, too weak to stand. My vision swam, my lip was split, my jaw throbbed, and every breath stabbed me from the inside. One of my eyes was already swelling shut. The woman was curled up in the corner, sobbing into her hands. An officer knelt beside me. "You all right, son?" I wanted to laugh, or scream, or just pass out. Instead, I croaked, "Do I look all right?" He gave a quiet nod. "You're alive. That's what counts." Later, I found out the guy was high on some kind of synthetic meth, worse than bath salts, totally out of his mind. He'd been arrested before, multiple times. Domestic violence, assault, all of it. I didn't wait for another shift. Quit the next morning. Packed my locker, turned in my uniform, and walked out. Never looked back. But every time I drive past that Wendy's, my stomach knots up like a fist. People say fast food jobs are easy, safe, no real danger. They don't know the half of it. Because that day I learned something I'll never forget. You don't have to work nights to meet a monster. Sometimes, they show up for lunch. My name's Eric Shaw, and I used to think nothing could shake me. Grease fires, belligerent drunks pounding on the drive-thru window, even a rat once dragging a fry like it was a prize. I'd been closing at the Wendy's in Topeka for just over 6 months. It was always the same routine. Me, a mop, and some classic rock blasting in one ear to make the silence tolerable. It was just after 11:30 that night. I was in the back swiping at a sticky mess near the fryer, strawberry syrup, thick and bright as blood, pooling from the damn frosty machine again. Probably Alana's fault. She rushed everything. Always did. I had one earbud in, the other hanging loose, brushing against my collarbone. The store was dead quiet, that kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, just wrong. The overhead lights flickered just once. A quick blink. They'd been doing that for days, so I didn't think twice, didn't hear the front door open, didn't hear the register chime, didn't even notice the scream at first. Population. I paused mid-mop. It sounded warped, like a glitch in my music. Maybe the end of the track? Then again, louder this time. Population, population. The second time it was different, too crisp, too real. Not from my playlist. I froze, the mop still in my grip, angled awkwardly mid-stroke. My heart stuttered, then surged into overdrive. My breath caught, shallow and sharp. A familiar chill washed over me, the same cold I felt the night my older brother got shot in our driveway 5 years ago. That feeling, that something unspeakable was already happening and I was too late to stop it. Then the sound. Sharp, violent, unmistakable. Gunshots. Inside our Wendy's. I yanked the last earbud out and held still, breath tight in my lungs. Silence. Thick and unnatural. I crept forward, inch by inch, shoes sticking faintly to the syrupy floor. The fryer hummed in the background, too loud now. My throat felt tight like it was trying to close up on me. I eased toward the kitchen's edge and peeked around the corner. My stomach turned. I saw them all. Alana, Greg, Mark, and Rhonda, lined up on their knees in the lobby, hands locked behind their heads. Their faces looked wrong, off, like masks molded from fear, barely human anymore. 2 others, customers maybe, were already face down on the tile, unmoving. Blood had pooled beneath them, dark and slow, soaking into the grout. And standing over them was a man. Tall, pale, hoodie zipped halfway, jeans stiff like he'd slept in them. His beard was scruffy, not messy. He had the look of someone who didn't care how long this had taken to plan. He held the pistol with both hands, like someone who'd done this before. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't rushing, just calm, controlled. He walked to Greg. Poor kid had only been with us a week. Still wore his "Hi, I'm training" badge like a joke that hadn't gotten old yet. I watched, frozen, helpless, as the man raised the gun. A shot rang out. Greg crumpled like someone had cut his strings. Just folded, eyes wide and glassy before he even hit the ground. My knees went. I caught myself on a shelf. Metal clanged under my elbow. Loud. Too loud. He heard it. I panicked. Instinct kicked in. I turned and sprinted, feet slipping a little, shoving myself through the double doors into the back stockroom. I dove behind a stack of cardboard boxes near the triple sink, heart jackhammering against my ribs. The air back there felt thick, hard to swallow. My hands were soaked. Sweat, maybe something else. My mouth felt like it was full of sand. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Deliberate. Heavy. Boots pressing into the syrupy mess I hadn't finished cleaning. Closer. Each step felt like it vibrated through the floor. He was muttering now. Low, rambling nonsense. Words that didn't connect. Words I couldn't understand. And he was getting closer. Angry. Or maybe just confused. That's what I felt in his footsteps. Slow, deliberate, like he wasn't sure what he was hearing but was ready to kill it anyway. I heard the door creak open, soft but sharp in the silence. I didn't breathe. The air sat heavy in my chest like wet concrete. He moved slowly, scanning. His boot landed right in front of the box I was crouched behind. Through a narrow slit between the cardboard, I saw blood smeared across the laces. Fresh, thick. My grip tightened around the mop handle until my knuckles turned white. It was all I had. A stick with wet string. But in that moment, it felt like a sword, a final line between me and death. He crouched slightly, tilting his head like he heard something. Our eyes nearly met, almost. And then, crash. Something toppled across the room, hard, loud. The man spun toward the sound, jerking the gun in that direction. And out of the shadows, Marcus lunged. I didn't even know he was still alive. He slammed into the guy with a desperate grunt, hands clawing at the gun like a wild animal. They crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs, thrashing, grunting, fighting like it was the only thing keeping the world from ending. 2 shots rang out quick and violent. I winced. Marcus gasped, clutching his side. He tried to crawl backward, blood leaking through his fingers. His eyes locked on something behind me. Maybe hope. Another shot. His body jerked once, then stilled. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My body betrayed me, frozen, drenched in sweat. My face was soaked, my limbs numb. I couldn't move. Then I heard boots again. Another man stepped in, shorter than the first, but heavier. Thick arms, bald head, heavy chain around his neck that clinked as he walked. His face was twisted with frustration, not panic, like this was taking too long. "Finish checking," he barked. "Make sure no one's breathing." My heart dropped into my stomach. Panic snapped me into motion. I slid backward into the cabinet beneath the industrial sink. Barely fit. Knees crushed to my chest. The smell of bleach burned my nostrils. I held still, clamped my mouth shut, tried not to make a sound. The cabinet door yanked open. Before I could think, I exploded outward. Thrust the door into the gunman's face, knocking him off balance. He stumbled, crashing into the shelves behind him. Supplies and metal clattered everywhere. I launched at him with everything I had. No plan, just fear and fists. He hit me in the ribs, hard. Pain shot through me. I swung wildly, caught a broom and smashed it into his side. He grabbed my neck, squeezing, pushing me backward. My vision tunneled. I reached for anything. My hand found a shard of broken plastic, maybe from a bottle. I jammed it into his side once, twice, 3 times. He screamed, "Let go." I collapsed forward, gasping. Blood on my shirt, not mine. I scrambled to my feet, coughing, vision spinning, and bolted. Didn't get far. The second guy, chain neck, was already at the hallway exit, gun drawn, face hard and focused. He raised it, fired. The shot missed, but barely. I ducked, turned, ran the other way as fast as I could. I stumbled into a narrow room, an old filing space with dusty shelves and a metal desk. I slammed the door behind me, shoved a chair under the knob. My lungs were heaving, my whole body shaking. Boom! The door jolted. A gunshot blasted through the lock, splinters flying. No time. I climbed on the desk, pushed open a ceiling tile, and pulled myself into the crawl space above. Dust filled my throat. It was hot, dark, claustrophobic. I dragged myself forward on my elbows, praying, just muttering desperate promises to anything out there willing to listen. I don't know how long I crawled. Maybe half a minute, maybe a decade. But then I found an opening. Dropped down into another hallway, barefoot and trembling. The emergency exit was just ahead. I shoved it open and stumbled out into the night. Cold Kansas air slapped my face. I was shaking, barefoot, blood-smeared, wild-eyed, but I was alive. A car screeched to a stop on the road. A man jumped out. I collapsed at his feet, babbling, begging, pleading for help. The police came fast. Within minutes. They found the first shooter, barely alive, bleeding out on the storeroom floor. The second guy, he got away, slipped into the night like a shadow. They said it was a robbery, just a robbery. All those people I joked with, shared fries with, closed with, gone. For a drawer of cash, for nothing. Only 2 of us made it, me and Alana. She'd survived by going still, playing dead. Lucky they didn't check. Sometimes I still hear Marcus gasping, still see Greg fall, still feel the warmth of someone else's blood soaking into my shirt. I haven't gone back to work, don't know if I ever will, but I'm alive. Now I live differently. I notice things, I cherish things, stupid things. A cone from 7-Eleven, a late night walk, a breeze that doesn't carry screams. Silence used to mean boredom. Now it means I'm still breathing, and that's enough. I never thought delivering fast food could get you killed, or worse. When I started working the night shift at the Wendy's on Jefferson Street in Louisville, Kentucky, I wasn't chasing dreams or hoping to climb some corporate ladder. I just needed rent money. I was 24, flat broke, and running on fumes, physically, financially, and emotionally. By day, I was doing DoorDash runs all over the city. At night, I clocked in at Wendy's from 6 p.m. till sometimes 2, 3 in the morning. The double grind was hell. My feet were blistered, my knuckles burned from fryer oil, and I had a constant film of grease in my pores that no amount of scrubbing could get out. The worst part? That low, endless hum of the fryers. It crawled into your bones. Still, it was work. And in my world, steady work was a miracle. Carl was our manager. Gruff guy with a permanent limp and a nicotine patch always slapped on the side of his neck like a badge he forgot to take off. He wasn't the talkative type unless it was to bark at us or ramble about some obscure punk band none of us had ever heard of. But one night, he pulled me aside near the back door, where the air always smelled like mop water, old fryer grease, and something vaguely rotten. Maybe lettuce, maybe death. He lit a cigarette, even though we weren't supposed to smoke back there. "You want to make real money?" he asked, eyes narrowed against the smoke. "Always," I said, wiping fry salt off my apron. He handed me a laminated card, edges worn, with a number scribbled in thick Sharpie. "Late night deliveries, Fridays and Saturdays. Cash tips only. The store gets a cut, you keep the rest," he said, voice low like he was passing on a secret. "But you gotta be cool going out to some weird-ass places." "Weird how?" He scratched behind his ear and smirked. "Ash Hollow, Riverbend Motel. Some of them long-ass gravel driveways off I-64. Real hillbilly cryptid shit." He chuckled, taking a drag. "But drunk people tip better than God." I took the card. I didn't hesitate. Groceries, gas, and maybe a night without ramen noodles? Count me in. The first few weekends were easy. Some stoned college kids who forgot they already ordered. A lonely old man who gave me a 10 just for showing up with a baked potato. A woman at the river bend who opened the door in nothing but a silk robe and asked me if I liked jazz while Billie Holiday played in the background. Weird? Yeah. Creepy? Not really. That changed the last Saturday of October. The whole shift was off from the start. The drive-thru speaker kept glitching, looping static like a dying robot. A kid threw up in the dining room. Carl looked like death warmed over, sunken eyes, twitchy hands. He kept staring at the security monitors like he was watching a different world play out in black and white. Close to midnight, Marcy, the girl working drive-thru, walked up holding a paper bag. She looked uneasy. "One spicy chicken combo, double fries, chocolate frosty," she said, her eyes flicking toward Carl's office. "Name's Mara V. Address is way out past Ash Hollow." I raised an eyebrow. "Isn't that past the Shell station? The one with the broken sign?" She nodded, lowering her voice. "Way past it. You sure you want to take it? I can cancel." Before I could answer, Carl stepped out of his office like he'd been waiting. His gaze locked on the bag, then on me. "If you're headed to Ash Hollow, don't go past the old reservoir," he said flatly. "Why not?" He paused. Something flickered behind his eyes. "GPS gets screwy. People get lost," he muttered. "Don't go past it." That was all he said. I was too tired to argue, too broke to care. I grabbed the bag and headed out. My truck, a beat-up Tacoma with rust eating through the wheel wells, groaned to life after a couple of tries. I punched the address into Google Maps and cranked the heat. It was colder than it should have been for late October, and the fog was thick, like sheets of cotton drifting low and slow, smothering everything in sight. As I left the city behind, the houses grew sparse, traded out for long stretches of tree-lined road that looked more like tunnels than streets. Streetlights disappeared, swallowed by fog that rolled in thick and low, muting the world outside my windshield. My headlights felt useless, smearing across the mist like paint on wet glass. Still, I wasn't scared. Tired? Yeah. But I'd driven weirder routes for less. Then the radio fizzled into static. I figured it was a dead zone, common out this far, but every time I tried switching stations, it was the same. Garbled fuzz, then silence, like something was pressing down on the signal. I glanced at the GPS. The map glitched, froze for a second, then jumped. The road I was on vanished from the screen. Just gray, nothingness. "Great," I muttered, forcing a laugh, hoping that saying it out loud would make the tension in my chest ease. That's when I saw her. A tall woman, standing dead center in the road. She wasn't moving. No wave for help, no reaction. Just standing. I slammed the brakes. The truck jerked to a stop so hard the seatbelt caught my chest. I leaned out the window, heart thumping. "Hey, you okay?" She didn't answer, just tilted her head to the side, slowly, like a puppet with tangled strings. I reached for my phone, hands shaking. Marcy, Carl, hell, even 911, anyone. But before I could unlock it, she was gone. Not walked away, not ran, gone. I floored it. The road veered hard left, then snapped right. The trees leaned in unnaturally close, like they were craning their necks to watch me pass. My GPS was done, screen frozen mid-glitch. I was driving blind. Then the phone rang. No caller ID. I answered, voice tight. "Hello?" A man's voice, low, cracked like it had been dry for years. "Don't go any further. Turn off the engine, get out of the truck." "What? Who the hell is this?" "Get out now. Don't ask questions, don't look back." "I'm calling the cops." "You already passed her," he said, and his voice broke. "If you don't move now, she's going to feed." I don't know why I listened. Something in his tone. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a man already mourning. I opened the door and stepped out. Cold slapped me like a hand to the face. Wet, bone-deep cold. The air stank, metallic and sweet, like rust and rot. Then, thud. Something landed on my truck roof. Another thud. I spun around. She was on the hood. slamming a deer carcass against the windshield over and over like she was trying to break through or make it bleed. The deer was shredded, ribs exposed, hooves limp, blood smeared in wide arcs, her arms too long, her knees bent the wrong way. And her face, God, no face at all. Just smooth, pale skin stretched tight across bone, no mouth, no eyes, nothing. I think I blacked out. When I came to, I was lying on a dusty cot inside a cabin. Old, cracked wood, cobwebs in the corners, a fire crackled in the hearth. I wasn't alone. A man stood by the window, face hidden in shadow. "You looked back," he said quietly. "Who are you?" "Nobody," he said. "Just someone who made the same mistake." He handed me a bowl of soup. I drank it, too stunned to speak. He didn't say much after that. Wouldn't tell me where we were. Just said, "Wait for morning." When the sun came up, he was gone. So was my truck. I walked until I found a gas station, borrowed a phone, called Carl. He acted like I was crazy, said I'd never left, said I'd clocked out hours ago and gone home. Marcy swore there was no order for anyone named Mara V. No bag, no delivery, no record. But I remembered the static, the cold, her. And now, every time the fog rolls in on Jefferson Street, I stay inside. Because once you see her, really see her, she remembers you, and she's always hungry. Weeks passed. I tried to go back to normal, clock in, flip patties, pretend like I hadn't seen something that cracked reality in half. But normal's a joke after that. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of her. Not the full thing, just hints. A shadow near the freezer, a flicker in the drive-thru cam feed, a smear of dark something on the frosty machine that no one else noticed. Then one night, I found something in my locker, a laminated card. The same one Carl gave me, same worn edges, same number, but this time no name, just one message in shaky red ink. She's still hungry. I quit the next day, packed up, moved across town, swore off Wendy's forever. But last night I got a DoorDash ping. Spicy chicken combo, double fries, chocolate frosty. Delivery address, Ash Hollow. The app wouldn't let me decline, and this time, there was no reservoir to turn back at. I wasn't supposed to be there that night. One of those dumb, tired decisions you make when your brain's fogged up and your stomach's louder than your common sense. Ellie, my girlfriend, and I had just left a small house party on the edge of Greenwood, Indiana. It was a little after 11:15 p.m., and we were both wiped out and snapping at each other over nothing. Typical end-of-the-night stuff. We hadn't eaten since lunch, and the second we got into the car, it hit us both. Hunger, heavy and sharp. Ellie rubbed her hands together and muttered, "I'd kill for fries. Something greasy. Right now." I laughed, even though I felt like I could barely keep my eyes open. Only thing open this late's probably Wendy's. You good with that? She didn't even hesitate. God, yes, I don't care if it's fresh. Just make it hot. The I-65 exit wasn't far, and sure enough, there it was. A lonely Wendy's sitting off Count Line Road, still lit up with a flickering open sign in the window. That should have been a red flag. Most places in that area shut down early during the week, but I figured maybe it was one of those rare 24-hour ones. Didn't question it too hard. The parking lot was almost empty. One other car, a dark red SUV, sat in the corner, its windows fogged, probably an employee's. "This place looks dead," I mumbled, stepping out into the cool night air. "Even better," Ellie replied, tugging her hoodie tighter. No lines. We walked up to the door, the motion sensor barely responding as we pushed in, and right away, it felt off. The air inside was heavy, too still. It smelled like overused fryer oil mixed with something sour and faintly chemical, like old mop water that hadn't been changed in weeks. The overhead fluorescents buzzed in a constant grating hum, casting this pale, washed-out light across the scuffed linoleum. No music. No customers. Just the soft hum of a distant fan coming from the back. Behind the counter stood a man, mid to late 40s, maybe older. Tall but disturbingly thin, like his body hadn't caught up with adulthood. His limbs looked stretched out as if someone had pulled him too hard from both ends. He wore the standard Wendy's uniform, but the sleeves were short, leaving his wrists exposed. Bony, almost skeletal. A graying beard clung to his jawline like it didn't want to be there. And then his eyes. Empty. Wide. Glassy. Unblinking. Like he'd been staring at something way too long and forgot how to stop. "Evening," I said, keeping my voice light. He didn't answer. Just raised one eyebrow slightly. No shift in expression, no words. I nudged Ellie with my elbow. "Go hit the restroom if you want, I'll order." She nodded and slipped past me, the soles of her shoes squeaking faintly as she crossed the sticky floor. I turned back to the guy. "Can I get a number 6? Spicy, with a Coke?" Still nothing from him. He pressed a few buttons on the register without glancing down. The movement was robotic, no wasted motion. Then he held out his hand for my card. His fingers were cold enough that I flinched a little as I passed it over. He swiped it, then pointed silently behind me. "No receipt?" I asked. He shook his head once, slow. I tried to play it off, gave a half-hearted chuckle. "All right, man. Guess I'll wait." And so I stood there, in silence. The guy didn't move from behind the counter, just stared, eyes locked on me, unblinking. The longer I stood there, the more I felt like I wasn't being looked at. I was being watched, studied, like he was trying to figure out how I worked. It started to get to me. Then I realized Ellie hadn't come back yet. I checked my phone. 11:38 p.m. She'd been gone over 10 minutes. I turned and called down the dim hallway toward the restrooms. "Ellie?" No response. Behind me, I could feel the guy's eyes still locked on the back of my head. I glanced at him. He blinked slowly. Just once. Like watching a spider crawl across a window. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm just gonna check on her real quick." He didn't respond. Didn't move. I headed toward the hallway. The women's restroom door was closed. No sounds coming from inside. I knocked gently. "Elle, you okay?" Nothing. I leaned down, noticing a flicker of light leaking from underneath. Not the usual cold white from a fluorescent fixture, but strange. A pulsing, color-shifting glow. Blue, then red, then green. Soft and rhythmic, like the glow of a TV stuck on a broken channel. "Ellie?" My voice wavered. Still no answer. My throat went dry. Something was wrong. I grabbed the door handle and slowly pushed it open. The smell hit first: dust, mildew, and something electrical, like ozone. The bathroom was dark except for the glow of a boxy, old-school TV placed directly on the floor in the corner. It looked like it had been ripped out of someone's basement in the 90s. Definitely not something you'd expect in a fast food bathroom in 2024. The screen was alive with static and flickering images, fast, chaotic, spirals, sharp cuts of abstract shapes, foreign letters that made my head hurt just looking at them. And there was Ellie. She stood motionless in front of the screen, staring dead into it. Her body completely still, arms hanging limp by her sides. Her shoulders weren't tense. She looked peaceful, almost, like she was asleep with her eyes open. "Ellie." My voice cracked. She didn't turn, didn't blink, didn't move at all. Too relaxed, like she was asleep standing up. I stepped inside. The flickering light from the screen pulsed against the grimy tile floor, casting erratic shadows that danced along the cracked mirror and stained walls. The tiny TV buzzed with static, but underneath that noise was something else. A low, droning hum that vibrated in my chest, steady and unnatural, almost like a growl that had forgotten how to end. "Ellie," I said again, firmer this time, and reached out to touch her arm. The second my fingers brushed her skin, she jolted. Just a small twitch, but enough to startle me. Her eyes fluttered like she'd just woken from a deep sleep. Her lips parted as if she meant to speak, but nothing came out. She swayed, off balance, and slowly turned toward me. Her pupils were dilated, unfocused, trying to land on my face. Hey, I said, catching her elbow. You okay? She shook her head, dazed. I don't know. What was I doing? You tell me. She blinked hard and looked past me, her eyes locked on the now muted screen. I think I was watching something. No kidding, I muttered, casting a glance at the bizarre images still flickering. My stomach twisted. I crouched and yanked the plug from the wall. The screen snapped off instantly, and the room plunged into shadow. The sudden silence felt like a weight. I could hear both of us breathing. Come on, I said, grabbing her hand. We're getting out of here. We stepped back into the hallway and immediately froze. Something had changed. The fluorescent lights overhead had dimmed. The white glow now tinted a murky amber. The buzzing sound from earlier was louder, harsher. It crackled like electricity in the air before a storm. The walls felt closer somehow, like the place was breathing. The man at the counter was gone. Let's move, I whispered. We walked fast, not running, but close. I kept Ellie behind me, my eyes scanning the empty dining area. Then we reached the door, locked. I rattled it hard. Nothing. Didn't budge, no give, no sound. Just the heavy clunk of metal that wasn't supposed to be locked from the inside. What the hell? I hissed, checking the latch, then the windows. Ellie was breathing harder now, one hand clutched around the back of my jacket. This doesn't make sense, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You saw him, right? The guy behind the counter? I saw him. He just stared. He didn't talk, didn't do anything. A sharp clatter rang out from the kitchen. We both flinched. Then silence. Then something else, wet, dragging, followed by a low scrape, like something heavy being pulled slowly across the tile floor. Then came the footsteps, slow, deliberate, not clumsy or panicked, heavy, measured, coming closer. We backed away, every instinct screaming to run. I grabbed my phone and tried calling 911. No signal. I turned to Ellie. Back, bathroom's window. We bolted down the hall, slammed through the restroom door, and Ellie scrambled onto the toilet, reaching for the narrow window above. Hurry, she hissed, pushing it open. Thank God it wasn't painted shut. She twisted, grunted, and hauled her upper body through. I jumped up after her, shoving my hands against the frame and squeezing through. My hoodie caught on something, ripped slightly, and then my foot kicked off the wall just as I heard it. The creak of the bathroom door opening behind me. I didn't look. Didn't need to. Whatever it was, it had waited too long. And now it was here. I tumbled out beside Ellie into the cool night air. We didn't pause. We ran. Across the cracked back lot, past the dumpster, straight into the trees at the edge of the property. Neither of us looked back. We kept running until we hit a gas station a quarter mile down the road. Our phones lit up with signal the second we stepped inside. I called the cops. Ellie was shaking so bad she couldn't even speak. 20 minutes later, a cruiser pulled up. The officer listened, but I could tell by his face. He didn't buy it. Still, he agreed to check it out. When he came back 10 minutes later, his face had changed, pale, tight around the mouth. There's nothing inside, he said. Doors were unlocked. Place looks like it's been abandoned for months. No staff, no power, no food. What about the red SUV? I asked. He shook his head. No cars in the lot. I tried to explain again. About the man, the locked door, the TV in the restroom, the screen. But his eyes glazed over. The look people give you when they think you're high or crazy. I'll file a report, he said. But honestly, Probably some kids broke in, pulled a prank. You two should head home. Get some rest." We did. But rest didn't come easy. Since that night, I've driven past that Wendy's 3 times. It looks the same every time. Windows boarded up, weeds strangling the parking lot, graffiti covering the walls. The open sign is gone. Just a dark shell now. I asked around. A guy at the gas station said it had been closed for months. Something about a fire in the kitchen. Said it never reopened. Said the night shift manager, a guy named Leonard, went missing just before it shut down. They never found him. Ellie still wakes up sometimes in a cold sweat. She mumbles about the lights, about the hum. She doesn't remember everything, but enough to make her flinch when we pass old fast food joints at night. I started unplugging the TV before bed, and I keep my phone on airplane mode now. I don't know what really happened that night, but I know this. We weren't supposed to be there, and something knew it. I never thought I'd leave behind the sticky warmth of Tampa for the cold, fast-paced grind of New York City. But when my dad, Paul Hammond, finally found what he called the spot, a property in Brooklyn perfect for his lifelong dream of running a family-owned bakery, we packed our lives into a U-Haul and left Florida behind without a second thought. Dad's always been a hands-on kind of guy. Baking, building, fixing. He needed to stay busy, always in motion. Back home, we had a small pastry shop just off a sleepy road in a town most people couldn't find on a map. We had our regulars, a handful of loyal customers, but the shop never made enough to feel secure. I'd just graduated from Hillsborough Community College with a degree in business, hoping one day I could help turn Dad's dream into something bigger. And suddenly, bigger was right in front of us. The building we bought was off. That's the only way I can explain it now. A short, red brick place wedged between a dusty liquor store and a grimy laundromat. The front had these big glass windows, the kind you'd picture for a boutique, still smudged with old decals from whoever ran it last. Inside, the layout was basic, front for displays and customers, back for the kitchen, where heavy stainless steel counters and an industrial walk-in freezer waited, silent and humming. Out back, a narrow alley and a service door, its hinges corroded with rust like it hadn't been touched in years. Nothing about it screamed, "Dream come true." But the price? It was almost too good. Cheaper than anything else in the area by a wide margin. We joked about it being haunted, laughing then, but never really shaking the unease. Still, we moved in with open hearts and cautious optimism. During renovations, only Dad stayed up in the city. He refused to waste money on hotels, so he camped out in the back kitchen on a folding cot, claiming it was like an adventure. Mom and I stayed behind in Tampa, closing up shop and tying off the last of the bills. When the bakery was finally ready, walls freshly painted, counters gleaming, and that sweet warm smell of baked bread wafting through every corner, we made the move together. We named it Maple and Rye. It felt right, simple, comforting. And to our surprise, the locals took to it fast. From day one, we had people lining up. Folks were raving about our lemon scones, and my mom's apple cinnamon loaf sold out by noon every day. By the end of the first week, we were struggling to keep up with demand. It was more than we'd hoped for, almost surreal. But with that success came new pressure. Custom cakes, catering, late-night prep for early deliveries. My parents were both nearing 70, and as much as they loved the hustle, I saw it wearing them down. That's when I posted a job ad and met Millie Carter. She was a second-year culinary student at Kingsborough Community College. Afternoon classes, looking for night work. Her resume was brief, but solid. Clean, sharp. She seemed serious but kind, with a quiet, creative energy I liked right away. We hired her on the spot. Millie took the late shift, from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m., helping with prep and baking. Most nights I stayed with her, especially when things got hectic. We clicked pretty quickly. She was funny, asked all the right questions, and had a way of modernizing my mom's old-school recipes without losing their heart. But then, 2 weeks in, She vanished. No show for her shift, no call, no text, nothing. At first I assumed it was something minor, maybe finals or a family thing she forgot to mention, but after 2 more missed shifts and no word, I started to get this tight, cold knot in my gut. I knew where she lived, just a few blocks away. That evening, I walked over. Her building was old, the kind of place that once had charm but had long since been forgotten. Faded yellow bricks, chipped window frames, iron stair rails that creaked with every step. When I knocked, the door opened just a sliver. Millie peeked out. Her eyes met mine, and she froze. Wide. Haunted. Like she'd seen something she couldn't unsee. I barely got out. "Hey, are you okay?" before Millie slammed the door shut in my face. "Millie," I called, knocking again, softer this time. "Please, just tell me what happened." For a long moment, nothing. Then, the door creaked open a few inches. Her eyes peeked through the gap, hollow and red-rimmed. You weren't there that night," she whispered. Her voice trembled like she was holding back tears. "What do you mean?" I asked, stepping closer. "The night you were sick," she said, barely audible. "I was alone in the kitchen." She opened the door wider and slowly sank onto the edge of a worn, threadbare couch inside. Her hands trembled in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. "It started around midnight," she said. "I heard footsteps in the front of the shop. I thought maybe you were running late, but when I went to check, no one was there." Her voice cracked and she swallowed hard. "Then I heard more footsteps, louder, closer. I thought someone had broken in. I called out, but there was no answer." I watched her closely. She was unraveling. "Then I saw it," she whispered, eyes darting up to meet mine. A man's shadow standing in the kitchen doorway. He didn't move. He just stood there. I couldn't see his face. She paused. Her mouth opened slightly like she was about to say something else but couldn't bring herself to. Then she said it. "I heard a gunshot, loud, close, like it came from inside the walk-in freezer." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just stood there, frozen, watching her fall apart. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Your bakery. It's not right. Something's wrong there. I can't go back. Please don't ask me to." Before I could respond, she shut the door again. Not slammed this time, just quietly, firmly. That night I went to the shop alone. We had prep to do for a Sunday morning delivery, and I told myself I'd be quick, done before midnight. I tried to shrug off what Millie said. Stress, fatigue, maybe even trauma. The streets outside were empty. Our storefront glowed under the half-dead flicker of a street lamp, the reflection warped in the glass. I unlocked the front, flicked on the lights, and headed into the kitchen. Everything looked normal. Quiet, clean, the faint scent of cinnamon still lingering from the morning's batch. I got to work. Then, at exactly 12:40 a.m., I heard footsteps. Not soft, not distant, heavy, measured. Slow steps across the customer floor. I stopped, every hair on my body standing on end. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. Then, whispers. Faint, fractured murmurs, like someone whispering frantically under their breath. The words didn't make sense, just fragments. Pleading, desperate. I reached for my phone, hand shaking, but then I saw something move. A shadow. Broad shoulders. Standing perfectly still in the kitchen doorway, just like Millie described. I spun around. Nothing. No one. And then, bam! A gunshot. Deafening. My ears rang instantly. I dropped to the floor, hands over my head, my heart slamming against my ribs. The oven timer beeped behind me, cheerful, stupidly oblivious to what had just happened. I sat up slowly, scanning the room. Empty. Still. I checked the alley door. Still locked. No sign of entry. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Like someone was standing right behind me, breathing down my neck. I left everything half-finished and walked home in a daze. The next morning, I couldn't ignore it. I needed answers. I started digging, old property records, archived news clippings, deep web forums, anything. What I found made my blood run cold. In May of 2000, the building had been a Wendy's. Not just any Wendy's, the Wendy's, the one from the headlines. A disgruntled ex-employee named John Tate and his accomplice Victor Mendes forced the manager to lure all 7 employees into the walk-in freezer. Once inside, they tied them up, covered their heads with plastic bags, and shot them execution style. 5 died on the spot. 2 barely survived, all for $2,400. It was one of the most brutal fast food murders in New York history. Both men were caught and sentenced to life without parole. And now, our bakery stood right where that freezer used to be. The layout matched. The freezer, the back hall, everything. I told my parents. My dad sat there silent, staring at the floor. My mom cried. We called a local priest. Father Jonah came the next morning, from the Catholic church 2 blocks over. He walked through the shop quietly. Then, near the back hallway, he stopped. "This place," he murmured. "It holds pain, fear. They're still here." He performed a full cleansing. Holy water, incense, prayers that echoed through the kitchen like wind down a tunnel. He said the spirits were confused, trapped in the place where they lost everything. After that night, the bakery changed. No more footsteps, no more shadows, no more gunshots. But sometimes when I'm there late, alone and everything's still, I feel it again. Just for a second. A weight in the air. A sadness so thick it clings to your skin. Like someone's watching from the freezer door. Waiting. I never thought I'd end up slinging burgers again. After quitting my last job at a rundown diner on the east side, I swore I was done. With late-night shifts, the smell of burnt oil seeping into my clothes, the ache in my feet after standing 12 hours straight. I meant it. But rent doesn't care about personal vows. And when I moved to Crestston Hollow, I realized fast that a new zip code doesn't mean a fresh start. It just means new bills. Crestston Hollow was odd. Too quiet. Too clean. People smiled too wide and too long like they'd been practicing in the mirror. Everyone acted friendly, but something about the town felt off, like the cheer was painted over something darker. Still, I needed a job. And when I saw a hiring sign at Wendy's, I didn't hesitate. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a paycheck. And honestly, I didn't have the luxury of being picky. Glenn, the manager, was a wiry guy with jumpy eyes and a voice that never quite matched his expression. He hired me after my second interview no-showed, said he liked my attitude. The shift was 5 p.m. to close, sometimes as late as 1 a.m., depending on cleanup. Easy money, Glenn told me. After 9, you'll barely see a soul. He wasn't wrong. Those first few weeks were slow, dead slow. I'd restock the same packets of sauce no one used, wipe already clean tables, and kill time listening to true crime podcasts that made me question why I ever worked alone. After 9 p.m., it was just me. Darla, the night cook, left right on the dot every night. Then it was silence, save for the hum of the fryer and the flicker of overhead fluorescents that always felt 1 second from dying. Then came Friday. It didn't start scary, just annoying. A group of loud, obnoxious teens came stumbling in around 9:30, clearly drunk or high or both. They ordered half the damn menu and acted like I was personally offending them by not teleporting their food to the counter. One kid knocked over an entire tray of sauces and laughed like it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. Another kept calling me Red because of the Wendy's uniform. Real original. By the time they left, it was 11:10. The dining room looked like a war zone. Napkins everywhere, fries crushed into the tile, ketchup smeared across the touchscreen. I was tired, bone tired. I popped in my earbuds, cranked up some indie band I used to like in college, and got to work scrubbing and sweeping. All I wanted was to finish, go home, maybe grab a cheap beer, and pass out watching garbage TV. I was halfway through wiping down the counter when the door chimed. I looked up, heart sinking, already imagining one of those teens coming back for a forgotten phone or to mess with me. But the doorway was empty. The glass door swung inward, slowly, like it had just been pushed. Then it eased shut with a soft click. I frowned and pulled out one earbud. The restaurant was dead silent. And then, I heard it. 3 faint taps. Delicate, almost polite, like a child lightly knocking on a tabletop. My gaze drifted across the counter. She was just there. A little girl, no more than 8 or 9, standing perfectly still. Freckles dusted across pale skin, bright ginger hair woven into 2 neat braids, each tied with a soft blue ribbon. She wore a frilly blue and white dress that looked like something out of a 1950s commercial. Crisp, pressed, too clean for a kid her age. White socks with lace trim, shiny black shoes, not a scuff on them. I didn't feel scared at first, just annoyed. This had to be a joke. One of those kids must have roped their little sister into pulling a prank. "Hey," I said, trying for polite but firm. "Nice costume, but we're closed." She didn't react, just stood there watching me with this strange calm, her head slightly tilted. "You can tell your brothers, or whoever, that I'm not in the mood," I added, stepping around the counter. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked over to one of the booths, climbed up onto the bench with eerie grace, and opened one of the old laminated menus we hadn't used in months. I didn't even know we still had those out. "I want one of everything," she said. Her voice was quiet, smooth, like she wasn't playing. "Take your time." I blinked. "Kid, look, we're closed, and you shouldn't be here alone. Where are your parents?" She looked up at me, unblinking. "I am home." The word stopped me cold. Something about the way she said it, so matter-of-fact, so sure. I felt a shiver trace my spine, but I forced a shrug. Walked out the door into the parking lot, half expecting to see someone crouched behind a car with a camera, laughing. Nothing. The street outside was completely dead. Even the gas station across the road, usually lit up like a beacon, was dark. No flickering signs, no buzzing fluorescents, just stillness. I stood there for a second, scanning the parking lot, listening for laughter, footsteps, the click of a phone recording. Nothing. Just the hum of distant wind and the hollow quiet that only shows up when something's very, very wrong. I stepped back inside. She hadn't moved, still perched at the booth like a regular customer, menu open, her eyes locked on me with unnerving focus. "Listen," I said, trying to sound in control, but my voice wavered. "You can't be here. This isn't funny, this isn't a game, I'm calling the cops." The girl stood. "You shouldn't be rude," she said, calm and deliberate. "Not in my home." And that's when I felt it. A shift in the air, sudden and deep. The temperature dropped fast, sharp. Cold seeped into my bones, my breath came out in white clouds. Inside, in late summer. She smiled, slow and deliberate, and I swear her teeth looked too white, too perfect. I didn't wait. I backed away, careful not to break eye contact. My legs brushed the counter. Then I turned and bolted toward the back room door. Screw protocol. Screw cleaning. I burst through the front door instead, my sneakers hitting the pavement hard as I sprinted down the street, past the shuttered buildings toward the shitty apartment complex I was renting a room in. That's when I heard it. Not footsteps, not breathing. A scream. A scream that cut through the silence like broken glass through flesh, so sharp it made my ears ring and my vision blur. I turned against every instinct, screaming not to. She was coming, running full speed, her little legs moving too fast to be natural. In her hand, gleaming under the streetlight, was a knife. One I recognized, from the prep station, the same one I used earlier that night. I pushed harder, my lungs on fire, but something yanked my leg, like an invisible wire had caught my ankle. I hit the pavement hard, Skin tore from my palms. My shoulder screamed as it hit the curb. And then, she was on me. The knife drove into my shoulder, then again into my arm, then my leg. I thrashed, kicking, screaming, but the night swallowed every sound. Her face hovered inches from mine. Her eyes weren't eyes. They were painted glass, hollow, reflective, unfeeling. "You all need to learn respect," she whispered. She raised the knife again. Headlights. A car screeched to a stop. A door flew open. A woman's voice shouted, panicked and shrill. The girl's head jerked toward the light. Then she ran, silently, back into the dark, disappearing like she'd never been there. The cops came. So did Glenn. So did the questions. They didn't believe me, not really. They mentioned hallucinations, trauma, a theory about a woman with dwarfism, like that bizarre case overseas. The EMTs drug tested me. I was clean. But the woman who'd stopped her car, she backed me up, said she saw the girl, the knife, the blood. Still, they never found her. I quit 2 days later. Didn't even pick up my last check. And even now, years later, I still see her. In dreams, sure, but not always. Sometimes in shadows. Reflections. The shape of a ribbon caught in a breeze. Always the same pale dress, the same red hair, the same eyes that don't blink. I try to tell myself it was just a nightmare, a stress response. But deep down, I don't believe it. Because I don't think she was just some ghost. I think Wendy's is hiding something worse. And the real horror? I started to wonder what else they were serving up with those fries. After I left Wendy's, something followed me. I could feel it. Not always close, but watching. Every corner of Crestston Hollow felt like it echoed with the memory of that little girl. Her blank stare, her polished shoes, the blood on her dress. But it wasn't just fear. It was suspicion. That she wasn't the only piece of this. That the whole damn town was in on something. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The two perfect people. The eerie calm. The silence after dark. I tried to shake it. Got a new job at a coffee shop 3 blocks down. Day shifts only. No friars, no uniforms, no red-haired mascots. But the nightmares stayed. And then, one night, as I was closing up, wiping down the espresso machine, I saw her. Not physically, not in the flesh, just her reflection, faint but clear in the steel. Her face, her smile, those eyes. I spun around. Nothing. Just the hiss of the steamer and the hum of the cooler. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, that maybe I was finally cracking. Then the Wendy's burned down. It wasn't a big blaze, just enough to gut the place. The news said it was an electrical fault, old wiring, poor maintenance, but it felt intentional, like the building had been waiting to burn. I went to see it. I didn't mean to, but I ended up there anyway. Standing in front of the charred husk of what used to be my life. I should have felt closure. Instead, I felt unearthed. Like the fire had peeled back a layer and revealed something that had been hiding underneath all along. Something old, rotten, hungry. And that girl? She wasn't done. As I turned to leave, I saw something through the smoke. A figure, small, too small to be grown. Walking toward the ruins with slow, certain steps. She turned. Her ribbon fluttered in the breeze. She smiled. "You didn't learn your lesson, did you?" she said. I backed away, my breath caught in my throat. And just before I turned to run, she whispered one more time. So quiet I felt it more than heard it. "You'll never leave." I hadn't seen my sister Dana in over 3 months. We weren't on bad terms, not exactly. We just drifted. Things had been tense ever since I started dating Jordan, who, unfortunately, happened to be her ex. She said she was fine with it, told me they'd broken up nearly a year before and it didn't matter anymore. But I know Dana. I know the way her voice gets, sharp and syrupy, like honey on a razor blade. I know that too perfect smile she puts on when she's bottling something up. Tonight was supposed to fix things. She texted me around 10, said she needed a ride home from a party in Glendale. I was already in sweatpants, halfway through deciding on which true crime doc to watch, but I told her I'd come. It felt like the adult thing to do. Be the bigger person. Extend the damn olive branch. When I pulled up outside the complex, she came stumbling toward my car like she was walking a tightrope. 4-inch heels, tight velvet dress, her glittery purse swinging like a pendulum from her wrist. Of course, she looked incredible. Like a model from a 90s club flyer, frozen in time. "Hey, stranger," she said breathlessly as she slid into the passenger seat. "You okay?" I asked, glancing at her sideways. "Just tired and starving." She dropped her head against the seat with a dramatic groan. "Can we please hit Taco Bell?" It was nearly midnight, but I knew the one off Litchfield and Main stayed open 24/7. I nodded. "Yeah, sure, let's go." By the time we pulled into the drive-thru, 3 cars were already in front of us and 1 behind, boxed in. On the right was the restaurant's wall, and on the left, a thick concrete curb I'd definitely blow a tire on if I tried to hop it. I slipped the car into park with a sigh. Dana groaned beside me, louder this time. "Ugh, what is this? A food truck at Coachella?" "Calm down," I said, rubbing my eyes. "It won't take that long." She scoffed, half laughing, and jabbed her finger toward the matte black sports car ahead of us. "Just nudge them," she said. I blinked at her. "What?" "Come on," she said, grinning. "Just a little tap. Wake them up. Get the line moving." Her smile was wide, but her eyes, they didn't match. Too focused, too clear for someone who was supposed to be drunk. "Yeah, I'm not going to do that," I muttered, adjusting the air conditioning. Then without warning, she shoved me, hard, right in the shoulder. It wasn't playful. It was jarring. I flinched. Dana's always been deceptively strong, but tonight something felt off. "Jesus, Dana, what the hell's wrong with you?" I snapped. "You want to know what's wrong with me?" Her voice dropped an octave. The slur vanished. Her words came out clear, precise. I turned to look at her. "You're sober," I said, my stomach sinking. She smiled, but it was cold, empty. "Pretty much." "The drunk act?" "Had to make sure you'd drive," she said, casually reaching into her glittering purse. "Had to make sure we were stuck in line. No way out." "What are you talking about?" She didn't answer. Just pulled out something long and silver. Thin, sharp. A knitting needle, one of those she used in her TikTok crafts. She held it up to the overhead light, letting it glint. "Dana," I said slowly, keeping my voice even. "Put that away." "I just want to talk," she said in a sing-song voice. "Really talk, without you speeding off or storming out or hiding behind Mom's guilt trips." She lowered the needle, holding it inches from my neck. "Why did you take Jordan from me?" she whispered. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear anything else. "We've had this conversation," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You broke up. You said it was mutual. You told me you were okay." "I lied," she cut in. "I lie a lot, actually, but not tonight." I glanced at the couple in the car ahead, laughing about something, totally unaware. The truck behind us sat idle, its driver slouched back, scrolling through his phone. No help, no exit. The tip of the needle touched my neck. Not a stab, just a light poke. But I felt it, the delicate pressure, the fine edge against skin. Dana's eyes didn't blink. "Let's play a game," she said, her breath sugary and close. "You say you'll break up with Jordan." She moved the needle away. "Easy." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. It felt like one of those dreams where you try to scream, but your mouth won't open. Then the needle pressed again, just a little deeper, enough to break skin. I felt a warm trickle slide down toward my collarbone. "Dana," I choked, voice cracking. "You're scaring me." "Good," she said, her voice soft but brimming with menace. I shifted slightly in my seat, barely an inch. Every nerve screamed for me to move, to bolt, to fight. But I knew if I jerked, she could jab. Just one quick thrust and that needle would be buried deep. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "For what?" Her tone was mocking, sing-song. "Be specific." "For dating him," I said, forcing the words through a throat that felt like it was closing. "For not talking to you first. For assuming it wouldn't hurt you." She stared at me, her face unreadable. Then that smile returned. Wide, sweet, terrifying. "I don't think you're really sorry," she said, "but I think you're scared enough to lie, so I'll take it." The needle didn't move. "I'll dump him," I blurted, voice cracking. "I swear. I'll end it." Still, the point hovered just above my skin. I closed my eyes, trying to remember how to breathe. Slow, steady, like in the yoga classes Dana used to drag me to, before she decided they were cult-like garbage. I inhaled, exhaled, forced my body to loosen, just enough. My fingers tingled as blood returned to my limbs. Then, carefully, so slowly I barely noticed myself doing it, I raised my left hand and wrapped it around her wrist. She didn't resist at first. She just watched me. Then I twisted. The needle clattered onto the floor mat. I stomped down with my heel, grinding it into the rubber. Dana screamed, a high, furious shriek, and lunged. I grabbed her with both hands and shoved her back against the passenger door, pinning her there. She writhed, clawing at my arms. "Help!" I screamed, loud enough to make my throat burn. The couple in the car ahead turned in their seats, eyes wide. For one suspended second, they looked right at me, at my face, at Dana's flailing limbs, at the blood running down my neck. And then, wordlessly, they turned back around. Just like that. Dana's hand disappeared into her purse again, and I knew. "Don't," I said, but it was too late. She pulled out another needle, this one gold-tipped, and lifted it with trembling fingers. Her lip curled. "You really hurt me," she whispered. "You act like I'm the crazy one, but you took something that wasn't yours." The needle hovered inches from my face, so close I couldn't even focus on it. Just a blur of metal and shadow. My breath hitched. "I'll end it," I said, panicked. "I swear. He's gone. I'll block his number." Her eyes, suddenly glassy, searched mine. Her breathing slowed. Then, slowly, deliberately, she lowered the needle. The car in front of us pulled forward. It was our turn. Dana tucked the weapon back into her purse like it was a lip gloss. Then she smiled, as if we'd just finished some intense emotional breakthrough. Therapy by threat. "Oh," she chirped, "get me a chalupa, and maybe a Baja Blast." I stared ahead, jaw clenched, hands still trembling. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. The speaker crackled. A bored teenage voice drawled, "Welcome to Taco Bell. Go ahead with your order when you're ready." I gave them hers. Then, after a long pause, I added, "And just a cup of water." We drove home in silence. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My shoulder ached from where I'd pinned her. My neck throbbed. Dana hummed softly beside me, like it was just another late-night ride between sisters, like nothing had happened at all. I didn't sleep that night. And no, I didn't break up with Jordan. But the moment I walked through my front door, I blocked Dana's number. Because sometimes, no matter how deep the blood runs, family isn't a bond. It's a trap. I never thought working the closing shift at a fast food joint could wear me down this fast, but 2 months into my job at a Taco Bell off Highway 47, right at the edge of a town barely big enough for a Walmart, I was already wondering if this was what burnout felt like. It wasn't exactly the work. Sure, it could get disgusting. Grease caked in corners, meat that looked like it came from a creature never meant to exist, syrup leaks that made the floor stickier than flypaper. But that, I could handle. What really got to me was the atmosphere. Something shifted after 10 p.m. a kind of weird pressure, like the air turned heavier. That's when the last customers would trickle in, and the parking lot outside would fade into shadow. The store stayed open until midnight, but that last hour, it dragged, like time itself didn't want to be there anymore. Most nights, it was just the three of us. Me, Caleb, and Danny. Caleb worked the line. He'd been there almost a year and moved with a kind of hypnotic efficiency, like he could fold a crunch wrap blindfolded while listing off government cover-ups. Danny was a few years older than me and floated between the drive-thru and prep, depending on how busy we were. I handled register, cleaning, and the lobby, plus whatever else got tossed my way. Caleb was steady, quiet, chill, maybe a little too into conspiracy podcasts, but never weird about it. Danny, though, she had an intensity to her, not in a bad way, just sharp. When you talked to her, she stared like she was running diagnostics on every word you said. I figured it came from growing up with 4 older brothers. She didn't take crap, not even from the managers. Things started to shift around my 6th week. At first, it was subtle. One night, Danny froze in front of the frozen drink machine. Just stood there, staring at it like it was the first time she'd seen one. "You good?" I asked as I came back from mopping the lobby. She didn't answer right away. Just stood there, eyes blank. Then suddenly, like she snapped out of something, she hit the wrong button and filled a cup with blue raspberry instead of Baja Blast. Shit. Sorry," she muttered, tossing the cup and starting over. "Long day." She paused, then nodded, too fast. "Yeah, just tired." But it wasn't just that. Later that night, after she went to grab more tortillas from the back, Caleb leaned toward me, voice low. "You seen Danny tonight?" "Yeah," I said. "She seems off." He glanced toward the back hallway. "She's been talking to herself, like full-on conversations. I thought she had a Bluetooth in or something, but nothing." I laughed a little, trying to shake it off. "Maybe she's stressed?" "Maybe," Caleb said, but he didn't look convinced. By the 2nd week of weirdness, Danny had gone quiet. No more snarky comments when a stoner rolled through ordering 24 tacos. No eye rolls when the drive-thru timer dinged like a fire alarm. She moved differently, slower, more deliberate, like she was trying to remember her own steps in a dance she used to know by heart. That Friday night, it was just the 3 of us again. Claire, our manager, had left around 9 p.m. like usual. We were halfway through wiping down the kitchen when I heard something metallic hit the floor. Clang. The sound echoed from the dry storage room. I looked up just in time to see Danny backing out of the hallway, her eyes wide and unblinking. "What happened?" I asked. She didn't answer. Caleb appeared beside me. "You all right?" Danny blinked and turned slowly. Her voice came out small. "There was someone in there." My stomach twisted. "In dry storage?" Caleb was already stepping forward. "Wait," I said, holding out a hand. "Could have been a rat or something." But Danny shook her head fast and hard. "No, a man. I saw him." Caleb flicked on the hallway light and pushed the storage door open. The room was empty. He checked behind the racks of sauce boxes, peeked under the mop sink. Nothing. "I swear," Danny whispered. Her hands were trembling. "He was right there. He was smiling." We all tried to laugh it off later. Made some dumb joke about the taco ghost or a bean burrito poltergeist. Danny went outside to smoke, and Caleb and I exchanged a glance, both of us pretending it didn't shake us. But it did. It wasn't like her. She wasn't the type to invent stories or freak out over nothing. After I clocked out that night, I sat in my car for 5 minutes just staring at the glowing Taco Bell sign buzzing in the dark, too bright, too sterile against the night sky. Something about the place felt wrong. Like the building itself knew something we didn't. The next day, Danny called out. Claire came in to cover her shift. I told her what happened. Claire didn't look surprised. "She's been on edge," Claire said, scanning the inventory sheet under the buzzing fluorescence. Her tone was more clinical than concerned, like she was diagnosing a broken fryer. "I'm going to talk to her about taking some time off." "You think she's okay?" I asked. Claire paused. Her eyes flicked up to mine, and for a second, her usual no-nonsense expression softened into something almost wary. "I think something's getting to her. Don't know what, but keep an eye out, will you? And let me know if Caleb starts acting weird too." I nodded, but her words sat in my gut like a bad burrito, heavy and hard to ignore. The real shift came the following week. I was on the line with Caleb, mid-dinner rush, tossing beef into a burrito, when I noticed his hands trembling. Not a little shiver, real shaking, enough to make the tortilla sag awkwardly in his grip. Then he dropped it. "Shit," he muttered under his breath, just staring at the mess on the counter. "You all right?" I asked, trying to keep my voice low, casual. Yeah, just my stomach feels weird." He bent forward slightly, gripping the counter like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "You want to sit down?" "Nah," he said quickly. "I'm good. Just need some air." He slipped out the back door, leaving me to juggle the line solo. 5 minutes later, he came back in, pale and hollow-eyed like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't say a word, just went back to folding burritos like he was on autopilot. I didn't press him, not that night. But the next one I found him standing by the fryers long after we'd closed. The lobby lights were off, only the glow from the back line casting long, sickly yellow shadows. "Caleb?" I called. "What are you doing?" He didn't turn around, didn't even flinch. He was staring into the dark space behind the fryer station like it held answers to some question I didn't want to ask. I stepped closer. His eyes were wide, glossy. "I saw it too," he whispered. I stopped. "Saw what?" He turned his head just slightly, barely a whisper. The man, just standing there, smiling. After that night, I started to feel it too. The pressure. The tight coil of paranoia that wrapped around my chest every time I stepped behind the line. And the smell. A thick, damp stench like wet earth, like a cave that had never seen sunlight, started seeping from the vents behind the fryers. Claire showed up the next day furious. "Why didn't anyone tell me the freezer door was left open last night?" she snapped. "Half the damn food is spoiled." Caleb and I looked at each other, both genuinely confused. "We didn't touch it," he said. Claire didn't believe us until she tried to open it herself. The handle wouldn't budge. The rubber seal had melted and fused the door shut, like something had warped it from the inside out. Then came the mold. It started as black streaks behind the fryer vents, small like old grease. But within a day it was spreading, ribbons of it leaking along the floor like ink dropped in water. We scrubbed, we bleached. Claire called pest control. They came, took samples, said it didn't match anything in their database. The next time they came, 2 of them wore masks. It didn't help. The smell got worse, thicker, more alive. Caleb stopped showing up. Danny was already gone, completely MIA. Claire paired me with a new guy named Josh for closing. He lasted 2 nights. "There's something wrong with this place," he said, eyes darting toward the back hallway. "What do you mean?" He just shook his head. I heard whispers. When I was alone, in the bathroom, voices calling my name. Claire was desperate now. Corporate was on her ass about health violations, about air quality and contamination reports. We were on the verge of shutdown. Then one night she stayed late to help me close. We were quiet, just the clatter of a broom and the hum of dying fluorescent lights. I was sweeping near the front counter when I heard her scream. I dropped the broom and sprinted toward the back. Claire was on the floor, backing away from the walk-in cooler, her face bone white, her hand shaking as she pointed. "The door," she gasped. It opened, by itself." I helped her up. For the first time, I saw something in her eyes I never thought I'd see. Fear. Real fear. Not stress, not frustration, but raw, primal dread. She quit the next morning. The store shut down 2 weeks later. Officially, the company said it was due to structural concerns and biohazard remediation. But I knew better. I felt it. Whatever had sunk its teeth into that place. I watched the cracks form in all of us. Danny, Caleb, even Claire. Whatever it was, it didn't come all at once. It seeped in, slow, patient, through vents and shadows and freezer doors. I went back once, after it was all over. Just sat in my car across the street, staring at the boarded-up windows. A giant yellow condemned sticker had been slapped across the glass. The lights inside were long gone. The place looked dead, but something about it still pulsed. And I remember sitting there asking myself, how the hell did it happen? How did a place as harmless as a Taco Bell turn into something wrong? Some environmental agency came out afterward, claimed the mold was a rare fungal mutation, maybe carried in on a contaminated food shipment. Said it released airborne spores that could cause neurological symptoms, hallucinations, paranoia, emotional instability. But even they couldn't agree on where it came from, or why it spread so fast, or why it felt so personal. I never heard from Danny again. Caleb moved to Oregon, at least that's what his Facebook says. As for me, I got a job at a gas station on the other side of town. Day shifts only. I don't work nights anymore. Not after what I saw, not after what I felt. Because some places aren't haunted by ghosts. They're haunted by something older, something that lives in the cracks and waits. I never imagined something like this would happen to my family, least of all in a place as ordinary as a Taco Bell. But maybe that's exactly why it happened. Ordinary places have a way of hiding extraordinary horrors. They don't announce themselves with flashing lights or ominous music. They just sink in, quiet, familiar, and by the time you feel them, it's already too late. Let me start at the beginning. I grew up in Stillwater, North Carolina. It's a blink and you miss it kind of town. One grocery store, a few gas stations, and a row of tired fast food joints squatting along Main Street. After college, I couldn't wait to get out. I moved to Raleigh, met my wife Emma, had 2 beautiful kids, and spent years grinding through corporate life. It wore me down, hollowed me out from the inside. Eventually, I hit a wall. The kind of burnout that makes you question everything, your job, your future, your sanity. Emma and I decided we needed to slow down. Give the kids, Claire, our oldest at 9, and Jack 6, a simpler life. Less noise, more space. We packed up our lives and came back to Stillwater. At first, we rented a place in town. Then we found what seemed like a miracle. A modest 2-story house 10 minutes outside Stillwater. Remote, quiet, surrounded by thick woods and open space. On clear days, you could see the Blue Ridge Mountains rising like silent sentinels in the distance. There were no neighbors close by, just birdsong, pine needles underfoot, and a stillness that felt like peace. The house had been on the market for 7 months, an eternity in this economy, but we took it as a stroke of luck. Emma wasn't so sure. Something feels off, she told me the day we signed the papers. I waved it off as nerves. It's just the quiet, I said. You'll get used to it. We poured everything we had into making it home. Claire and Jack were enchanted by the woods behind the property. They called it the Forest Kingdom and spent hours exploring under our watchful eyes. For a while, everything felt normal. Better than normal. Then the whispers started. Not literal whispers, not at first. Just odd remarks around town. Stray comments overheard at the grocery store or muttered at the gas station. You folks moved into the old Becker place, huh? Hope y'all ain't too superstitious. Or worse. Got kids? Keep an eye on them. It wasn't until one night at the local Taco Bell that things really shifted. Still, Waters Taco Bell was bare bones. No dining room, just a counter, a few tired booths, and the permanent scent of fryer grease soaked into the walls. That night, Emma and I took the kids for a quick dinner. She was helping Claire decide between cinnamon twists or a freeze when a teenage girl behind the register leaned toward me as I filled up our cups at the drink station. "You the ones who moved into the house near Garrison Ridge?" she asked, voice low, like she was sharing gossip she shouldn't. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, why?" Her expression darkened. "You know about the kid who went missing, right?" My hand froze over the ice machine. "What kid?" "Little girl," she said. "About your daughter's age. It was last year, I think. Just disappeared. Cops searched those woods for months. Whole town was out there looking. Never found her. The house was empty ever since." She glanced nervously toward the kitchen, lowered her voice even more. "People say she was last seen here, this Taco Bell, crying, saying she didn't want to go home, but no one did anything. Then, she was just gone." A cold wave passed through me. I walked back to the booth with the drinks, sat down, and told Emma. She went pale. We didn't say much to the kids, just hurried them through dinner and left. That night, we argued. Quietly, after the kids were asleep. Emma wanted to leave, sell the house. But we didn't have the money to just up and move again. Not after pouring everything into the place. And with the rumors hanging over the property like smoke, who would buy it? So we stayed. For a while, things were okay. Claire and Jack adjusted. They played in the yard, helped us rake leaves, even made friends at school. Emma worked nights at the clinic, and I handled evenings with the kids. We tried to stay close to them, not because we believed the Taco Bell girl's story, but just in case. Then October rolled in, and the air got sharp. That's when things shifted again. It was a Tuesday. Emma had a late shift, so I picked the kids up from school and promised them Taco Bell for dinner. Easy, familiar, cheap. We ordered our usuals and took the corner booth by the window. The sky outside was the color of bruised peaches, that strange autumn glow right before dark. Claire nibbled at her taco, eyes scanning the window. Jack was halfway through his quesadilla when he froze. He looked at me, eyes wide. "Daddy," he said, "there's a girl outside." I followed his gaze. There, just beyond the glass, in the narrow alley between Taco Bell and the old laundromat, stood a girl. Maybe 9 or 10. She was barefoot. Her dress looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks, and she was staring straight at us. No, at Claire. I blinked, and she was gone. Claire dropped her food and scrambled into my side, whispering, "I saw her too." I tried to brush it off. Maybe just a trick of the light, a reflection. Maybe some local kid playing a weird game. But deep down, I knew better. Still water had teeth, and they were starting to show. We were bickering over who got the last nacho fry. Nothing unusual. Claire and Jack went back and forth like they always did, and I half listened while checking emails on my phone. We were tucked in the corner booth by the window. The overhead heat lamp buzzed faintly, giving everything that soft, artificial orange glow. At some point, Claire slid out of the booth. "I'm going to the bathroom," she said. I nodded without looking up. Jack stayed behind, drawing dinosaurs or monsters, something with big teeth in his little notebook. He was so focused, tongue poking out in concentration, his taco half-eaten on the tray beside him. 3 minutes, maybe 4. Claire came back fast, too fast. Her face was pale, lips tight. "Daddy?" she said quietly. Her voice shook. "Jack's gone." I blinked and looked up. "What do you mean he's gone? He was right here." "I don't know," she said, eyes wide. "I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, he was just gone." My stomach dropped. The booth was empty. Jack's notebook was still there, the last page marked with a jagged red crayon drawing. His taco sat untouched. "Jack?" I called, loud enough that a few heads turned. No answer. I checked the men's room first. Nothing. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the clang of a loose ceiling tile in the vent. I darted down the back hallway, poked my head into the kitchen. No sign of him. Panic clamped down on me like a vice. "Has anyone seen a little boy?" I asked, breathless, to the girl at the register. My voice cracked. 6 years old. Brown hair, blue shirt. He was just here. She blinked, confused. "Wasn't he sitting with you?" "Yes. But now he's not. Please check the cameras. Call your manager, please." To their credit, they moved fast. They let me behind the counter and into the back office, where a wall of old security monitors flickered in black and white. Grainy, static-filled, angles fixed like dead eyes. We rewound the footage. I watched myself, distracted by my phone. Claire getting up. Jack staying behind, drawing. He looked up slowly, like he heard something. Then he turned his head toward the side hallway. He stood calmly, like someone called his name. Walked off screen. That was it. No one else entered. No one walked him out. He just vanished. I called Emma, then the police. They searched every inch of the Taco Bell, the bathrooms, the kitchen, the walk-in freezer, the parking lot, the dumpsters, the woods behind the plaza. Nothing. Not a footprint. Not a fiber. Like he'd evaporated. The days after were a blur. Cops, search dogs, news vans, flyers, interviews. Claire cried herself to sleep every night. Emma blamed herself for picking up that extra shift. I blamed myself for not watching more closely. And then the dream started. I began waking up in the middle of the night, heart thudding like a drum, shirt soaked in sweat. I'd swear I heard Jack's voice, faint, like it was coming from behind a wall. "Daddy." One night I dreamt I was back in that Taco Bell. Same booth, same orange light. The place was empty and Jack was sitting across from me. His skin was pale, his eyes too wide. "They're in the walls," he whispered, "behind the fryer." I woke up gasping. I didn't tell Emma. I didn't tell anyone. But the next day I went back. I waited until the manager was off the phone and asked if I could see the maintenance room. She frowned. "It's just storage." "I think there's something back there," I said. "Something to do with my son." Reluctantly, she brought me back. The room was small, just old boxes, cleaning supplies, broken mop handles, and bags of fryer oil. But near the floor, under a rusted shelf, a wall panel was missing. I knelt down and felt a cold draft spill out. A breath of air that smelled like mold and something worse. Something moved inside. I stepped back and called the police. They brought in a team with equipment, drones, lights, the works. It turned out the panel led to an old storm drain system from decades ago. The blueprints had been lost to time. The tunnels snaked beneath the shopping plaza like veins, narrow, jagged, half-collapsed in places. And in one of those chambers, they found Jack, alive, filthy, dehydrated, barely conscious, curled up in the dark, clutching a torn page from his notebook like a lifeline. He whispered my name when he saw me. He said something had chased him, something that whispered, a voice that knew him, that lured him in. He said he wasn't alone down there. Police found more than Jack. They found bones, tiny ones, a child's shoe, pink, frayed at the toe. It matched the girl who'd gone missing the year before. The restaurant was shut down immediately, the tunnels sealed. Still, water went silent. We didn't stay. We didn't sell the house. We just left it. Sometimes Jack still wakes up crying, though he won't talk about it. Claire asks why he never draws anymore. I think I know, because sometimes I still dream of that booth, of that narrow hallway, of that whisper. They're still down there, waiting. I never imagined my part-time job at Taco Bell would end in blood. It started like any other weeknight. I was working the closing shift with my cousin Daniel and my dad Miguel. Just the three of us, like always. We ran that place at night. Mondays through Thursdays, we kept it tight. Me on prep and line, Daniel on fryer and drive-thru window, and my dad handling the register and headset. Fridays, we'd sometimes get a fourth person if it got busy, but during the week, it was just us. We had a rhythm, like a well-rehearsed dance. We didn't need to talk much, we just knew. After all those months, it felt like muscle memory. The Taco Bell we worked at sat on the corner of Horizon and 23rd, squeezed between a beat-up tire shop and a 24-hour laundromat. The area always had people milling around, especially after dark. Out here, folks didn't eat dinner until 10 or later. Some nights, the drive-thru line at 11:30 was longer than at 6. That night, it was a little past 10 p.m. The lobby had just closed, so we were drive-thru only. The flow had been steady, nothing crazy. I was wiping down my station, trying to get ahead of the late rush. I remember thinking it was almost too quiet in the kitchen, just the sizzle from the fryer and the occasional beep from the timer. Then I heard my dad's voice over the headset. "Welcome to Taco Bell. Go ahead when you're ready." His voice was always too loud through the system. He was a little deaf in one ear from his old job at the factory. Whenever it was quiet in the kitchen, you could hear every word he said to customers. A man responded, "Yeah." Just one word, but the voice stuck with me. Deep, slow, dragged out, almost like he was drunk or sedated. There was a weird slur to it, a murky thickness that made the back of my neck go cold for no real reason. 4 tacos, extra sauce, 2 Cokes, the man said. Basic order. I started grabbing taco shells, trying to shake the unease, telling myself it was nothing. Just another late-night order. The SUV pulled up not long after. Big, black, heavily tinted. I glanced at it no more than a second, but when the window rolled down, I saw their faces and froze. 2 men, pale, waxy. Their skin looked wrong, like mannequins left too long in the sun, lips too thin, almost non-existent. One had a jagged scar running down his cheek. They looked alike, like brothers maybe, but something was off, like they were copies of a human instead of the real thing. It made every instinct in my body go still. My dad leaned out of the window holding the bag. "That's $9.86. The driver handed him a $20 bill. My dad held it under the blacklight behind the counter. He paused, flipped the bill, checked again, then his voice changed. It hardened. "This is fake." The man didn't even blink. "It's real." "No, it's not," my dad snapped. "You can take this and leave, or pay with something real." The passenger leaned toward the window, eyes cold. "Just give us the food. What's the big deal?" I stopped what I was doing and walked toward the pass-through, watching. My dad wasn't backing down. He stood his ground, still holding the bag. "I'm not serving you with counterfeit money," he said. "Leave." That was when it snapped. The driver threw his door open. In one motion, he lunged halfway through the drive-through window. In his hand, metal, a knife, a big one. Not a kitchen blade, something jagged and nasty. "Take the money," he screamed, "or I'll take your goddamn head off." Daniel dropped the fry basket, oil splashing. "He's got a knife," he yelled. I couldn't move. My legs just locked. My dad stepped back, hands up. "Get out," he shouted. "I'm calling the cops." I turned and bolted into the back, fumbling for my phone, nearly dropping it twice. My voice shook as I ducked behind the prep table, whispering into the receiver. 911, there's a man with a knife at Taco Bell. He's attacking my dad. Please, please hurry. From where I crouched, I could see the worst unfold. The man climbed through the window, all the way, crawled in like some kind of insect. My dad tried to stop him, but he moved fast, too fast. The blade flashed in the fluorescent light. Then, blood. My dad collapsed. Daniel screamed. I ran to him too late. The tile was already slick. I dropped to my knees, grabbing my dad's hand, saying his name over and over. "Dad, Dad, stay with me, please, please." But he didn't move. And those men, those freaks, they didn't run. They didn't panic. They stood there for a second, just looking down at what they'd done. The passenger reached over, grabbed the bag of tacos my dad had set down earlier. He looked at his brother. Then they both started laughing. Quiet at first, then louder. It didn't sound real. It sounded like they were mimicking laughter, like they'd seen someone laugh once and were trying to copy it. They walked back to their SUV, got in, drove off. It was over before the cops arrived, 90 seconds maybe. By the time the paramedics came, my dad was gone. The cameras caught everything, but the plates were covered. The footage went viral for a couple of days. Headlines, hashtags, thoughts and prayers. But that's all we ever got. No arrests, no leads, nothing. My dad died over a fake $20 bill. We never reopened that Taco Bell. Daniel and I quit fast food for good. Couldn't do it. I still can't drive past that intersection without shaking. That was my little brother's first job. His first real trauma, and mine too. My little brother still asks when Dad is coming home. Mom won't sleep unless every single light in the house is on. Dad was a good man. He didn't deserve any of this. And the worst part? Those men are still out there somewhere, eating tacos like nothing ever happened. Every night I still hear that voice in my head, crackling through the headset. 4 tacos, extra sauce, 2 Cokes. I just stood there, frozen, watching the man. No longer just another customer, but something monstrous, lunge halfway through the drive-thru window. Before Dad could even react, the blade flashed under the harsh fluorescent lights. There was a grunt, a short scream, and then silence. "Dad!" I screamed. My voice cracked, raw and trembling as the horror crashed over me all at once. My cousin Daniel burst out of the bathroom, confused at first, until he saw the blood. Dad had collapsed behind the register, clutching his chest, gasping for air. I dropped everything and ran to him, slipping on the slick floor now stained with blood. "Dad, no. Oh no, stay with me, please. Just keep your eyes open," I sobbed, cradling his head in my hands. He looked up at me, eyes wide and unfocused. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. "You're okay." And just like that, he wasn't. I don't remember much after that. I think I screamed. I think Daniel did too. Eventually, we realized the SUV was gone. The men vanished as quickly as they'd appeared, like ghosts or nightmares leaving only wreckage behind. The police and paramedics arrived within 10 minutes, but it was too late. They tried to revive him, but the moment his hand went limp in mine, I knew it was over. I gave my statement, barely able to speak, mechanically answering questions. Daniel sat on the curb, staring blankly into the distance like he wasn't even there. The security footage clearly showed the attack, but the license plate was covered, and the men kept their faces low enough to avoid clear identification. One detective told me they'd seen similar cases, fake money used to bait clerks into arguments, violence used as a way to escape without paying. But this wasn't just an argument. This was murder. They never caught them. The footage was shared with other departments, uploaded online, passed around, but no matches, no arrests, no justice. We never went back to that Taco Bell. Neither of us could. The thought of walking into that place, seeing the floor where he died, or the headset still hanging where he left it, unbearable. The franchise closed temporarily after the incident, but reopened weeks later with a new staff. I heard they installed extra security cameras, hired guards even. But none of it mattered. Nothing could bring Dad back. My family broke in ways no one could have expected. Mom stopped sleeping. My little brother started wetting the bed again. My baby sister asks every night if Dad is coming home from work yet. I don't know what to tell her. Sometimes I still hear Dad's voice echoing in my dreams, soft and steady, trying to make me feel safe even when he knew he was dying. That was the kind of man he was. I try to live like he did, honest, strong, never backing down. But the guilt sticks to me like grease that won't wash off. I keep replaying it, over and over. What if I'd jumped in faster? What if I'd taken the order? What if I'd stepped between them? What if we'd just taken the fake money? People say none of this was my fault. But I was there. I saw it all. And I couldn't save him. I never thought I'd end up back behind a fast food counter, especially not after high school. I swore I was done with that kind of work. But desperation has a funny way of twisting your spine until pride starts to feel like a luxury. When I dropped out of college and had to crawl back to Fairpoint, the dried-up little town where I grew up, moving in with my dad felt like defeat. The job at Taco Zone was supposed to be temporary, just something to keep me afloat until I saved up for a used car and maybe enrolled in night classes. A bridge job, nothing more. Fairpoint didn't offer much in the way of opportunity. There was a Walmart, a gas station, a couple of fast food joints that never closed, and a lot of hollow-eyed people who looked like they'd given up around the time the old textile factory shut down for good. Taco Zone was wedged between a liquor store and a payday loan place, glowing 24/7 with garish purple and yellow neon that pulsed like a bruise someone was too tired to cover up. I sent in an online application and got a call back that same day. First shift was scheduled for the next evening. My manager, Tammy, was a thick-set woman with bags under her eyes like dark bruises. Her hair looked like it had been yanked into a ponytail in a hurry, every day for the past 5 years. No greeting, no smile. She just slapped a headset into my hand, jabbed a nicotine-stained finger at the register screen and muttered, "Don't let anyone leave without paying. And don't keep the food window open too long, or the rats come in." I gave a dry chuckle. "Wait, you're joking, right?" She didn't even blink, just walked off. The place smelled like scorched oil, sour meat, and old mop water. The floor made a sickening schlop noise every time you moved, like it was trying to hold you there. The cutting board was permanently stained orange from nacho cheese, and the soda fountain nozzles had a crust of black-green mold that no one seemed interested in cleaning. There was a guy, Marcus, manning the burrito station. Skinny. Twitchy. One eye drifted slightly outward when he focused. His fingers were yellow with nicotine, and he was watching a video on his phone while sloppily wrapping burritos without looking. Tammy leaned in close. Her breath smelled like ash and burnt coffee. "He's been here 6 years," she whispered, voice gravelly. "I wouldn't eat anything he touches." Then she laughed, a wet, wheezing sound, and slipped out the back door to light a cigarette. I should have walked out, right then. But rent was due. And jobs, especially ones that didn't ask too many questions, were hard to come by in Fairpoint. After a week, I learned the rhythm of the place. The night shift was mostly drunk college kids, stoners, and regulars who looked like they'd been banned from every other restaurant in town. The morning crew treated the bathroom like it had a curse on it, and the lunch rush always ended with at least one person crying in the walk-in freezer. But there was one customer, George, who stood out. He showed up like clockwork, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Always around 3 p.m. Tall, maybe mid-50s. His hair was greasy, his skin pale like he never saw daylight, and he wore the same ragged green hoodie and sagging sweatpants that looked like they hadn't met soap in weeks. He had this stare, direct, cold, unblinking, like his eyes were trying to bore through your skull. He'd lean over the counter just a little too far, as if daring you to flinch. Never smiled, never blinked, just locked eyes like he was silently asking, "Are you the one I'll snap on today?" 3 bean burritos, he'd say. "No sauce, no lettuce. If there's sauce or lettuce, I swear to God." He never finished that sentence. Didn't have to. Everyone working there filled in the blanks. We all knew where that threat ended. George complained every time, without fail. Too cold, too hot, too soggy, too dry. One time he snarled that the beans tasted like they'd been farted out of a corpse. Tammy offered him coupons just to shut him up. Marcus muttered insults under his breath and flipped him off when he thought no one was watching. But George always came back. The only one who seemed to enjoy his visits was Alex. Alex worked the back line. He had this permanent smirk, like he knew something you didn't, and thought it was hilarious. Mean streak a mile wide. He'd been fired and rehired 3 times already because Tammy couldn't afford to be choosy. Alex loved screwing with people, especially George. If George asked for no lettuce, Alex added extra. If George wanted mild, Alex used fire sauce. One time, he deliberately added sour cream to all 3 burritos, knowing damn well George was lactose intolerant. "Dude, you're gonna get us killed," I told him once, half joking. Alex just shrugged and grinned. If I gotta work in this hellhole, I might as well have some fun. But with George, messing around didn't feel like harmless fun. It felt like poking a sleeping dog you knew might bite. We all knew it was only a matter of time. When I asked Alex why he kept messing with George, he just shrugged, that lazy grin on his face. If the guy keeps coming back, he's either got a kink for punishment or nowhere else to go. At first it was kind of funny. Dark, sure, but we all laughed. Then it stopped being a joke. George started getting louder, meaner. His complaints weren't just about cold burritos anymore. They had venom, rage simmering just under his skin. One night after closing, I saw him standing by the dumpster. Just standing. Not smoking. Not looking through the trash. Just watching. Eyes locked on the building like he was memorizing its weak spots. It happened on a Thursday. Rain hammered the roof and smeared the front windows with long, dirty streaks. The store was dead. No customers. Just the low hum of the fryer and the buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. Tammy was holed up in the office pretending to do paperwork. Marcus was half asleep while prepping toppings. I was on register. Alex was running the kitchen. The door chimed. George stepped in, soaked to the bone. His hoodie clung to him, dark with rain. Water dripped from the hem and splattered onto the floor, his sneakers squelching with each step. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, eyes drilling into me like he was trying to decide whether I deserved to live. 3 bean burritos, he finally muttered. No sauce, no lettuce. I nodded, tapped in the order, and sent it back to the kitchen. Behind me, Alex snickered. Guess who's getting mayo today? I spun. Dude, stop. Seriously. Just make it right. He waved me off like I was a fly. Relax, I'll fix it, it's fine. I didn't believe him. 10 minutes passed. When I grabbed the bag, it felt off. Too light. My stomach dropped. I already knew something was wrong. George opened it at the counter right in front of me. He pulled out one burrito, peeled it open with slow, deliberate fingers. The second he got a look inside, his face twisted into something feral. "You people think this is funny?" he growled. "What's wrong with it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. He shoved it under my nose. "Smells like fucking chemicals. What is this?" Before I could respond, Alex came strolling up, wiping his hands on a towel, all smiles. "Hey man, sorry about that," he said, voice calm, almost cheerful. "You're right. You've had a rough time here. Let me remake it. On the house. Hell, I'll give you 4. George blinked. So did I. "Really?" George asked, suspicious but clearly surprised. Alex nodded. "Really, go sit down, we got you." Something about the way he said it. It was too smooth. Too easy. Alex wasn't the type to back down, and definitely not the type to apologize. But George believed him. He always wanted to be seen as the one in control, and maybe that little gesture of submission was all he needed. He sat in his usual corner, dripping rainwater onto the cracked vinyl seat, arms crossed tightly as he stared straight ahead. 15 minutes later, I handed him a fresh bag. I hadn't seen what went into it. Tammy had gone home early. Marcus was in the walk-in cooler. It was just me and Alex. George tore into them like he hadn't eaten in days. One after the other. No hesitation. 4 burritos. Gone. Then, he sat there. He wasn't glaring anymore. Wasn't saying anything. He was just still, staring at the wall like it was whispering something to him. Then the coughing started. It was violent, wet, heaving. His chair scraped back as he staggered to his feet, face twisted in panic. He grabbed the edge of the table, knocked over his drink. A second later, he doubled over, and vomit sprayed across the tile floor. Chunky, dark, sour. He collapsed. His limbs twitched uncontrollably. His eyes rolled back. Foam bubbled at the corners of his mouth. His skin turned from pale to gray, then to a sickly green. I screamed. Marcus came running from the back, wide-eyed. I yelled for help, already dialing 911. Alex wasn't there. He was outside, smoking under the drive-thru overhang, just out of reach of the chaos, just watching. By the time the ambulance got there, George was unconscious. He lay in a puddle of his own bile, twitching weakly. The EMTs worked fast. I remember one of them looking up at me, wide-eyed, whispering, "Rat poison. Jesus Christ. Enough to kill 2 people." Health inspectors were crawling over the place the next day. They shut us down on the spot, quarantined the whole building. They found rats in the ceiling, mold in the ice machine, boxes of meat that were 8 days past expiration. But none of that made the papers. The headline was simple: "Man poisoned at local taco zone. Criminal investigation underway." Tammy vanished, just stopped answering her phone. Her office was cleared out within 24 hours. Marcus told the cops he didn't see anything. Alex never came back. Me? I quit, walked out, told them I was done. No more fast food, no more graveyard shifts, no more nights waiting for something to go wrong. But I still think about that night, about George's face, about Alex, how calm he was, how smooth. No one ever proved anything. The security cameras glitched out during the incident. Of course they did. I don't talk about it anymore. No one brings it up. Not in Fairpoint. But sometimes, when I walk past an alley or catch a whiff near a fast food dumpster, it hits me. That smell. Stale beans. A chemical tang. And underneath it all, something sharp and rotten. Something dead. I never thought something as ordinary as leftover fast food could end in bloodshed. Back when it all started, I was living in a cramped, run-down boarding house on the outskirts of a little nowhere town in Indiana called Hiron Grove. You won't find it in any travel guide. Hell, you'd be lucky to find it on a decent map. It was the kind of place where rusted trailers outnumber houses and people knew each other's dirty laundry before the sun had even finished rising. The kind of town that smelled like burnt coffee and motor oil, where everyone was broke, bitter, or both. The only reason I stayed was the rent. Dirt cheap. I couldn't afford to be picky. I shared the house with 2 other guys, Ricky and Tom. Ricky was in his mid-50s, same as me. Tom was the oldest of us, pushing 74, though his exact age was always kind of a mystery. We weren't friends. Not really. Just 3 men scraping by, living under the same decaying roof and trying not to get in each other's way. The house was a wreck. The hallway floor groaned like it had a death wish. There was a hole in the bathroom wall someone had patched with duct tape and an old calendar from 2017. Still had a pinup girl on it, faded to near transparency. The kitchen faucet didn't work unless you turned it with a pair of rusted pliers we kept on a string above the sink. But it was what we could afford. Our SSI checks and whatever odd jobs we could scrounge didn't stretch far, especially with food prices climbing like they had a personal vendetta. So we lived off cheap fast food. Taco Bell was our go-to, a 15-minute walk if you cut through the lot behind the boarded-up church. We practically survived on bean burritos and dollar menu tacos. At first it worked. We each had a shelf in the fridge, marked our stuff, respected boundaries. Ricky wrote his name in blocky Sharpie letters across everything. Tom used red masking tape like a kid labeling his lunchbox. I stuck with napkins and initials, JT, scribbled in pen, taped to the lids of greasy plastic containers. There was an unspoken agreement. Don't touch what isn't yours. That kept the peace. For a while. About 4 months in, things started to unravel. Tom's memory, already a bit patchy, got noticeably worse. He'd tell the same story 3 times in a row or forget whether he'd eaten that day. Nothing new, really. Just age doing its slow, cruel work. But Ricky, Ricky didn't have much patience, never had. He had a temper like kerosene near a lit match, short, hot, and dangerous. The first real blow-up came on a Thursday night. I was sitting at the kitchen's wobbly table, chewing through a stale taco and scrolling through dead-end job listings on my cracked phone when Ricky came stomping in like thunder. "Where the hell's my crunch wrap?" he snapped. I blinked up at him, confused. "What?" "My Crunch Wrap Supreme. I bought it last night. Put it in the fridge. Now it's gone." I held up my hands. "I didn't touch it. I wasn't even home most of the day. You sure you didn't eat it and forget?" His eyes flared. "You calling me senile now?" Before I could answer, Tom walked in, holding his worn newspaper like a shield. Ricky spun on him. "You take my goddamn food again, Tom?" Tom squinted. "What are you talking about?" "My Crunch Wrap. You took it. You're the only one here who'd be low enough to steal from someone letting you live under the same damn roof." Tom's voice stayed calm. "I didn't touch your Crunch Wrap." Ricky's face twisted red. "If either of you sons of bitches takes my food again, I swear to God, I'll gut you like a fish. Don't test me." I laughed, but it came out wrong. Too nervous. "Come on, man. It's just food." Ricky didn't wait to hear the rest. He stormed out, slamming his bedroom door so hard the cabinet plates rattled. That should have been the end of it. But things didn't go back to normal. They got worse. Ricky changed. He stopped joining us in the living room. We used to watch reruns of Walker, Texas Ranger, and Jeopardy together, just for something to break up the long dead hours. But he stayed holed up in his room, curtains drawn, muttering to himself. At night I'd hear him pacing, talking like he wasn't alone, like someone was in there with him. I told myself it was just stress. We were all frayed at the edges. Poverty's a slow rot. It eats at your mind, makes you see ghosts in the corners. Then it happened again. This time, it was a quesadilla. At around 1:30 a.m., I woke to the sound of fists pounding on Tom's door. I stumbled out of my room, still half asleep, just as Ricky started shouting. "You thieving old bastard!" he screamed, fist hammering wood. "Open the damn door!" Tom cracked the door, bleary-eyed and shirtless. "Ricky, what the hell's going on?" "My quesadilla, gone, just like before. You think I wouldn't notice? You think I'm too dumb or old to keep track of my food?" "I didn't take anything," Tom said, voice shaking now. "Bullshit." Ricky was practically foaming. "That was my dinner. You've been stealing from me since day one. You think just 'cause you shuffle around and forget your own name you get a pass?" Tom stepped back, hand up defensively. "You're not right in the head, Ricky. You need help." "Oh, I need help?" Ricky's voice dropped to a whisper, scarier than the yelling. "You're the one who's gonna need help when I put you in the ground." I stepped between them before it got physical. "Enough! Jesus Christ, it's a goddamn quesadilla!" Ricky glared at both of us, chest heaving. Then he turned and walked back to his room, slamming the door harder than the last time. That's when I started locking mine. I came out of my room that night hoping to diffuse the tension, but Ricky wasn't having it. He shoved past me, wild-eyed, his voice rising like a siren. "That thieving old bastard's gonna pay," he barked, storming down the hallway. Tom had already locked himself in his room. I could hear him fumbling with the deadbolt just before Ricky got there, pounding on the door with the side of his fist. The next morning, Tom didn't come out of his room until nearly noon. His eyes were bloodshot, and he moved slow, like his bones ached in places no one could see. We didn't talk about the night before, none of us did, but after that the whole house felt volatile. Every creak of the fridge door made my shoulders tighten. Every rustle of a wrapper sounded like a lit fuse. I stopped storing leftovers. Too risky. One night I was sitting in the living room trying to enjoy some quiet. I had a couple tacos and a bottle of soda, the TV murmuring with a low-volume rerun of Cops. Tom had gone to bed early and Ricky hadn't left his room all evening. For the first time in days, things were still. When I finished eating, I cleaned up. threw my wrappers in the trash, rinsed my hands under that cursed faucet with the pliers, and called it a night. I crawled into bed, pulled the thin blanket up to my chin, and let the quiet lull me. Just before I drifted off, I thought I heard something. Soft, shuffling footsteps, maybe a whisper, but I was too tired to care. The house was always full of little sounds. I fell asleep. I woke to screaming. Not just yelling, screaming. The kind that strips the air from your lungs before your brain even catches up. High-pitched, raw, panicked. I threw off the blanket, heart slamming in my chest, and stumbled into my slippers. The house was pitch dark, not even the glow of the kitchen nightlight. I groped my way through the hallway, heart hammering harder with each step. That's when I saw them. Ricky had Tom pinned against the kitchen counter, both hands wrapped around the old man's throat. His arms were shaking with fury, face twisted in a way I'd never seen before. "I know it was you, you lying piece of shit," Ricky snarled. "You ate my goddamn chalupa." Tom's face was a sick purple. His hands fluttered weakly at Ricky's arms, trying to pry them loose, but he didn't have the strength. I didn't think. I just launched forward and slammed into Ricky, knocking him backward and off balance. "Jesus Christ, Ricky, what the hell are you doing?" "He stole from me again," he shouted, eyes wild. "I warned him. I warned both of you." Tom crumpled to the floor, wheezing, gasping like he'd been underwater. I stood between them, my hands outstretched, adrenaline rushing so fast I could barely think. "You try that again," I said, my voice shaking, "and I swear I'll call the cops." Ricky stared at me like he didn't even recognize who I was. Then, without another word, he turned and stormed out the back door. I heard it bang shut, followed by the flick of a lighter outside. I helped Tom onto the couch. He was still coughing, holding his throat, trembling. "He's gonna kill someone," he croaked, barely audible. "He's not right." "I'm calling the landlord," I said. "This can't go on. You shouldn't have to live like this." I glanced out the window. Ricky was pacing in the backyard, a cigarette glowing between his fingers, his movements jittery, twitchy. I figured I'd try one last time to talk sense into him. Stupid move. He didn't even let me finish. "You need to calm down." I started. Ricky spun toward me, eyes gleaming. "That old bastard's been stealing from me for weeks," he hissed. "I caught him last night, standing there like a damn rat in front of the fridge. Didn't even hear me come in." "Ricky, listen. I swear to God, if you defend him again..." "Ricky, enough. It's just food. Just food. Just food." He screamed it like the words physically hurt him, like each syllable burned his throat. Then, before I could react, he turned and bolted toward the house. I ran after him, shouting his name, but he reached the sliding glass door first and slammed it shut behind him, locked it. I pounded on the glass, fists thudding against the cold pane. "Ricky, don't do this, open the door." He didn't even glance at me. He stalked straight into the kitchen. I saw him pull open the drawer, saw him pull out the biggest knife we owned, and then I saw his face, that smile, that awful, gleeful, wrong smile. I screamed, slammed my fists harder, my knuckles split, blood smeared across the glass. "Stop!" But he was already gone, disappearing into the living room, the knife glinting in his hand. I couldn't see what happened next, but I heard it, the screaming, the struggle, the sickening, wet sounds that followed. When I finally dialed 911, my hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. But by the time the cops arrived, it was too late. They found Ricky standing over Tom's body, the knife still in his hand, blood soaked through his shirt, smeared up to his elbows. He didn't try to run, didn't resist. He looked up smiling. "Told you not to touch my food." Tom was pronounced dead at the scene. 8 stab wounds. The police said he didn't stand a chance. Ricky was arrested on the spot, charged with first-degree murder. He never showed a flicker of remorse. At his arraignment, when the judge asked if he understood the charges, Ricky just shrugged and said, "I'd do it again." I moved out 2 days later. I couldn't stay there. Not with the blood still staining the floorboards. Not with the echoes of that night still in the walls. Sometimes I still have nightmares. Sometimes I swear I can hear Ricky pacing outside my window, even though I know he's locked up for life. All over a couple bucks worth of Taco Bell. And people wonder why I flinch when someone offers me fast food. It's not the food, it's the memory. Because once you've watched a man lose his mind over a Crunchwrap Supreme, you never look at anyone or anything the same way again.